Hey, what's going on, everyone? And welcome back to another episode of Just My Opinion. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. And guys, I am excited. We are back once again. I believe this is the 32nd film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Guys, we are talking Guardians of the Galaxy, Marvel Studios, a James Gunn film, Volume 3. But this is spoilers. Yes, spoilers, 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 spoilers. You see the thumbnail, you see the title, you see the banner at the bottom, and you see the image that you're looking at right now, guys. We are going to spoil this film up, down, left, right, in, and out as if you've already seen it. You have been warned. Don't be getting mad at me. Oh, I didn't know it was spoilers, Brandon. Why did you give up the plot? No, you have been warned, okay? And so, spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. That is your warning. Also, before I introduce my guests, there also will be an audio only version of this broadcast available on my channel. Link in the description with buzzsprout.com. I'm on all of these platforms right here, as well as Spotify, not Spotify, as well as SoundCloud. And so if you want to get your audio only version on, you can at SoundCloud, buzzsprout.com, all that good stuff. And as you see, I'm not by myself. I got my lovely guests here. First, I got Elliot with Movie Files in the top right. How you doing, sir?
Good, man. Ready to talk about these Guardians saying goodbye.
Yes, sir.
True.
Yes, sir. Saying goodbye. And at
Yeah,
the
man.
bottom, we have Emans with Emans Movie Reviews. How are you doing, sir?
What's going on, fellas? Thank you for having me again.
Of course, of course, of course. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if you love what myself, Elliot, or Eman has to say, you can follow all of us on social media. Our handles are on the screen, and also these two gentlemen are on my channel tab right here. Let's help them reach their next milestones. This is what their channel looks like. This is Eman right here. He is about to cross 100K. And Elliot with Movie Files, he just passed 50K. Woo, 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 woo. Congratulations, my brother. Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Let's help him get to 60K. But guys, let's go ahead and if you haven't seen the film at this point in time that you see this video, all of us will have our own separate non-spoiler reviews on our channel. So make sure you go and check that out, and we'll do some more self-pubbing towards the end of this. But let's go ahead and get into this film right here. It is the second film in Phase 5, Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 3, directed by Mr. James Gunn. He's done all of these films, but now he's left Marvel. He's now over at DC as the co-CEO over there running the show. So the question is, did he leave Marvel on a positive note with a good taste in your mouth? Or did he was like, man, F Kevin Feige, F Marvel, I'm going to go DC. I don't care about this post-production of Volume 3. It's crap. No. Let us know how you feel in the comment section. We're about to let you know how we felt. But coming to you first, Elliot, what is your general, if people don't know, what is your general impressions of Volume 3? Are you satisfied with this ending, with the film? Let us know how you feel, sir.
Yeah, man. So at this point in time, I've gotten an opportunity to see it a couple times. One on Thursday, and then the next day, the following day. And actually, if I'm being honest, the second rewatch, I grew to appreciate things that maybe didn't hit or stick the landing for me the first going. A little bit more things that I picked up with the High Evolutionary that was not the best for me in my first viewing. Some of the tonal shifts we'll talk about, like the flashbacks. I wasn't the biggest fan of how they were incorporated with the main timeline or the main journey. But on the second rewatch, man, I've come to really kind of appreciate the nuances and some of the themes that they were highlighting with, imperfections and embracing your flaws and stuff like that. So general impressions, I think I am happy as a Guardians fan that they've concluded in this way. And I'm also happy that certain characters stayed with us because I'm a big fan of, as we'll talk about, my boy Rocket made it out alive, and he's the Cap now. But yeah, man, generally speaking, I think James Gunn went out in a good note, man. And I'm glad that he was able to finish his chapter. There's a line in this film that, everyone deserves second chances, as they say to Adam Warlock, which I don't think was an accident that James Gunn put that in the script, because it might speak to his experience with coming back to this franchise. So overall, man, I'm pretty happy with it. And I think this is definitely one of the better films that we've gotten in recent memory with Marvel. So I'm happy as a Guardians fan overall.
All right, I appreciate that. Email, how did you feel about this film? General impressions, sir.
I thought that this was a good cap to the end of a trilogy. I don't know if I'd say it was like the best in terms of standalone merit, and we could talk about that later. But I think for this specific trilogy, It was a really, really good ending, especially for all the beloved characters. Excuse me. I do think that this is probably the most James Gunniest of movies that James Gunn could make. He has left his imprint on this franchise. You know, his voice is throughout this entire thing. Yeah, I mean, I like pretty much the fact that he was able to have a franchise that doesn't feel, I don't want to say tainted, but it feels like it is just his own, no Marvel input, studio input. Like everything you see is what you get. As far as the movie, I did feel like it was kind of very similar to like the holiday special of the Disney Plus special. I felt like it was just more of that. So, you know, if you like that, this is going to be right up your alley. If not, then, well, you just got to deal with the fact that this is James Gunn's movie. But yeah, overall, I thought it was fine. I thought it was good. I do have some issues. I have some very big issues with it, but in fairness, I have only seen it once. I have not seen it twice. So there could be things that maybe I missed, or maybe things I'm not going to appreciate as much. So just full disclaimer, I've only seen it once, but so far good, not great, but we'll get into it.
Okay. I before we hit record, I told Eman, I was like, hey, I saw your reaction on your news show that you host every Friday. So I got an idea of how he felt about the film. I don't know entirely. I got an idea. But when I made a comment, and he was like, I was laughing at your reaction to my comment, because I was like, it was a great film. I just walked out of the theater. Round two, James Gunn did great. I don't know if he was trolling me or not, but he was like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. But to piggyback off of what you said, is you felt that a lot of this was just kind of like the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas special, and if you like that special, you will like this film. I happen to be one of the people out there that did like the Christmas special. You know, I don't think it was the best thing since sliced bread, but I ended up enjoying it, and it put a smile on my face, and I ended up enjoying Volume 3 as well. I'm still trying to debate which one I like more, Volume 3 or Volume 1 more, because there are some things in Volume 3 that kick Volume 1's butt as far as like the villain is concerned. I enjoyed the High Evolutionary in Volume 3. I could not stand Ronan in Part 1. Cleanse it. He was just really annoying to me. Of course, I'll get into all the other details later. I still do have some criticisms that we'll get into. But by the end of this, I think we're going to have a little fun time and rank these on how we feel. You know, which one is your favorite, you know, first to worst, whatever. But I did like this. I did. And at the time of this recording, I have seen the film twice. To be honest with you, the movie wasn't boring, but the first time I saw it, it did feel a little bit long. I think it came in at around 2 hours and 34 minutes, and 2 hours and 30 minutes to be exact. And you know, that's up there. And I was dozing off the first time I saw the film towards the third act. Not saying the movie was boring. I was just tired personally. And when I did my first out of theater reaction, I was like, yeah, I liked it, but I didn't love it. But when I got me some rest, I went to go see it again the next day on a fan screening, and I liked it a lot more. I felt really good about it. I was smiling. Like I did another out of the theater reaction, and I went from saying, okay, I liked it, to I love this film. But this still does not mean it doesn't have its criticisms. It does, and we're about to get into it. But overall, I really did like it. And so there you go. Those are our general impressions of the film. But now I want to get a little bit specific. One of the things that I did like about this film, and I'm gonna come to you first, Eman, is, you know, they wasn't trying to save the world. They wasn't trying to save the galaxy or the universe. They really wasn't even trying to face a villain per se. This film was focused on the group itself and their development as a group, and also as you know, their individuality. And I like that a lot. I was not expecting it. You would think that this is Volume 3 and they're in space anyway, so it's just going to be like, oh my God, counting down, 3, 2, 1, hit the button, Stamper, hit the button. But I mean, it was like that in a way, but with one character. What you say?
I said Galactus is going to pop up. It's
right.
Right.
It wasn't like that. It was really focused on Rocket, And I love the origin story aspect of this. As far as the execution is concerned, of covering him, that may not have been the cleanest that it could have been, and maybe that's kind of what you was talking about, Elliot, with the timelines. But for this to focus on Raccoon so much and get to his origin story and just kind of explain to us why he is the way he is, I thought that was phenomenal. I really did like that. Eman, how did you feel about that aspect? And you can add on however much you like.
So, as an MCU fan, I totally appreciated it, right? Like, I really, really like the fact that, like, yo, we finally got a chance to learn more about Rocket. We got a chance to see, like you said, how he acts and why he acts the way that he does. This was one of those things that, like, I believe James Gunn always has excelled at. He knows how to take a character, maybe even the most obscure characters, and make you care about them, make you empathize with them. Just the whole thing. We always knew, that he had like a troubled past, but now James Gunn was like, nah, it's right in your face. You got to confront it, and you're gonna walk this journey just like Rocket walked that journey too. And it definitely makes us connect more with him. Now, stepping outside of that, outside of this whole MCU, rose-colored glasses, this is what another reason why I compared it to the Disney Plus presentations, because it's so specific. It is so narrowed and confined to this one character. It's not the larger MCU that's involved here. So even if you're a casual fan and you're like, let me give the MCU a chance in my very first movie, this ain't it. This is not your entry point. This is not something you could casually walk into. This is a very, very specific movie. Again, that's not a bad thing, because the purpose of this movie was to cap off the trilogy. It was to give these characters an ending. But at the same time, whenever you get hyper focused and super niche, you are going to exclude people, right? Or even if people do kind of come in and watch this cold, there are going to be things that they won't appreciate as much, or things that they're going to kind of lose, in terms of like the storylines and the characters, so like, again, as someone who's watched these things, I'm like, I get it, I appreciate it, I understand what you was doing, but there were just some things that, like, I thought were missed. So for example, especially when we talk about the runtime, I thought that James Gunn milked the Gamora Peter Quill thing way too much. Again, as an MCU fan, everyone's seen Endgame. Okay, let's just be honest. Everybody has seen it. Okay, your mama, your cousin, everybody has seen that movie. We saw the beginnings of that. Then you had Thor: Love and Thunder. Peter still mourning over Gamora. Okay, we get it. Then you have the Disney Plus special, the holiday special. Peter still mourning over Gamora and all that. Then you come back to this movie, and it's like at least 3-4 instances where he's constantly going back to the whole Gamora and, man, we used to be great, and we used to, like, I was starting to side with Gamora, be like, look, shut up, leave me alone, stop it, And again, I'm not saying that story element was not important. I'm saying it was redundant, and it was just kind of used up and milked a lot. But again, you have to be there for the journey to really get, I think, what this does. But like, to your other point, I don't know if that's really a good or bad thing about the stakes not really being that high. I mean, when you go to a movie, usually, especially these Marvel movies, usually there has to be some sort of event that's happening that makes this worth going to see. At this point, you're going there for the characters. So if you're not invested in the characters, if you're one of those people that are like, nah, I want to see, how does this affect phase 5? How does this push the MCU forward? I think you're going to be disappointed. Like, and that, again, is going to vary. If you don't care about these characters, this ain't the movie for you. But if you do, hey, James Gunn delivers that in full. So kudos to him for that. As for the stakes, that's going to depend on the viewer.
Right on. Appreciate that. I'm gonna come back on one point about the Gamora and Quill, but I want to hear Elia first. How did you feel about the film and its focus and stakes? Because it was focused on Rocket a lot, a ton. And so, do you think that was a benefit to the film? Because I mean, he's a likable character, you know, a lot of people, he's your favorite. And so
Yeah.
how did you feel about Elliot, Rocket Raccoon, and the film focused on him so much? And you think it was for his benefit
Mhm.
or his demise?
Yeah, no, yeah. So yeah, if I haven't said it already, Rocket's my guy. Like he's by far my favorite Guardian, without question. And if I'm being honest, especially now after watching his third chapter, he's one of my favorite Marvel characters, you know, as far as just the story and his character's traits and just the whips and the battles that he goes into. He's just a phenomenal character. And I really did appreciate that we did get to focus so much on that backstory to help, like you said earlier, Brent, this kind of built that idea of like why he was the way he was in part one, why he is, you know, how he's embracing the family now, because we know he lost his family in this film with his close friends. So I love the flashbacks. And again, on the first viewing, it was kind of jarring when we were cutting back and forth, because
Yes.
personally, and this is even on the second viewing, I love Rocket so much, and this is their last time as a group together. I wanted Rocket to be more involved in the A plot. I thought it could have been a creative way to have him involved somehow, make it where Lila was still somewhat alive. He thought that she was dead, but she was actually alive this whole time, or the High Evolutionary brought her back to manipulate Rocket. So I just wish that he was more involved in the main plot and to still go on that journey to help his friends with his new friends and his new family. But putting that aside, going back to the flashbacks, I really did appreciate that. I thought at points in the film, even though I wish it was more balanced with the flashbacks and the current journey that we're on, I thought that was more compelling than what was going on with the Guardians on that journey when they go to the Orbit Corp and all that stuff. Visually fine, but I thought that the most dramatic and the most, like I said, engaging story was the flashbacks versus what the Guardians would try to do to save their friends. So generally speaking, man, I love that we focused on Rocket so much. And I will say to Eman's point with the, you know, your general audience versus someone that's been sticking around with the story. At this point, you know, 32 films in, 3 movies into this franchise. If you ain't on the boat, I'm sorry. You know, maybe you got to watch something else. So
Right.
to that point, I am glad that they did make it kind of hyper focused. It wasn't speaking to the greater MCU like at all. You know, there's no multiverse, no variants, no Kang, no nothing. It's a Guardian story. So as a fan, I did appreciate that. But at the same time, I understand where Eman's coming from as far as the general audience and then being kind of like standoffish inside baseball. But like I said, at this point, y'all, if you ain't on the boat, go ahead and catch the next one, man. But like I said, go back to Brandon's point. I did enjoy that we were so focused on Rocket, but at the same time, I thought everyone did have their moment to shine, even if it was to a default of Peter being a puppy dog on Gamora's leg the entire film, which I do have a point to that, which I'm sure we'll get to a little bit later. But yeah.
Right on, man. Appreciate that. Well said. Well said. Yeah, I love Rocket too. One of the things that I agree with you as far as saying you wish he could have been more involved with a plot. But what I'm glad that James Gunn did is he was still able to come through in the third act, and we get the Rocket that we know and love. He just wasn't bedridden the whole time and handicapped. I mean, we still got the quips, we still got the jokes, the personality. Him obsessed with guns, you know, blasting the hell out of those hell spores in that corridor, that hallway, which we're going to talk about. That was a highlight. So I do appreciate all of that right there. You know, Rocket did come through. Now, still staying on Rocket, I want to ask y'all about the plot. Did it make sense? Real quick before we go there, I do agree with you, Elliot. It was a bit jarring the first time I watched it, them going back with the flashbacks. I appreciated it, and it was nice and heartwarming, and I felt so sorry. I mean, goodness gracious, it's so cute and adorable.
I mean, that opening, man, with little baby Rocket in the cage.
Yeah, and you know, it was so uncomfortable seeing the rest of the crew and how they were just I think what a rabbit right here with spider legs. Like, oh my gosh, that's awful. That's awful. But we started getting these flashbacks because of the plot, and we're gonna talk about him specifically in a second. But Adam Warlock came through, and this is not the Adam Warlock time, but he came through and he blasted Rocket with something. He activated the kill switch, and you know, I guess the High Evolutionary installed that when he first built Rocket, just in case he wants to go rogue, he can shut him down. Is this a plot hole? And I'm gonna come to you, Eman, because I thought about this. If the High Evolutionary's goal was to rescue Rocket to study his brain so that he can put that software or that type of programming in his new counter Earth children that he had locked up, why would he try to kill him? Like, he sent Adam Warlock to do it, but you tried to kill him. but because could he still take the information out of the brain once he's dead or
Well,
disabled, or does that make sense?
he definitely wanted Rocket's brain, right? Which was gonna kill him anyway, you know. But I think, if I recall, it was more so a failsafe to make sure that, you know, whatever data, like I kind of interpret it as proprietary information. You know, like I can't let somebody else get my research, because he was also running a company. What was it? Orgo?
True, that's true.
Or whatever.
Orgo Corp.
Yeah, like
Space
I thought it was more of like, okay, if this gets into the wrong hands and somebody can be better than me, because remember, the High Evolutionary has a god complex. He couldn't stand for that, but he definitely wanted Rocket's brain one way or another.
Gotcha. I just at first I was thinking like, okay, this doesn't make sense. You know, if you want his brain, why kill him? But he could have just trying to deactivate him, and you know, still be able to obtain the information that he wants that way. But Eman, how did you feel about the farm creatures and all of them? Did you like them? Did you hate them? Did it work for you? Was you like, oh my god, this is so sweet, the animals? Or we like, oh my god, can we fast forward to this part? This is silly. How'd you feel?
You already know I got my dog Kobe and everything, but I'm not one of those, you know, people that value animals above humans or nothing. I felt bad for them, don't get me wrong, but I wasn't like, you know, teary-eyed or anything like that. But you know, like, by the way, if anybody is sensitive to animal experimentation and cruelty, you know, spoiler alert, like, you know, don't get triggered now, because there is some of that in this movie. But it's kind of crazy, because the first thing that actually came to mind, especially when I saw Spider Bunny, was Toy Story 2 and Sid. Like that was the first thing I started thinking about. And it was getting a little creepy, you know, for a little bit. I was like, man, James Gunn, man, buddy be going a little too dark sometimes.
Some trauma days, man.
You know, like, I know you had a troubled childhood and all, but bruh, like, chill out, you know. But that's all I really felt. I mean, again, I felt bad that they were being experimented on, but that was about it.
I got you. Appreciate that. I want to transition to the Ogle Corp place that we just talked about briefly, and this is going to get into one of my criticisms. You guys can let me know if you agree or disagree. This was one of the main things I didn't care for in the film the first time I saw it, and the second time is okay. So the Adam Warlock comes and he activates the kill switch. They research, find out it said Ogle Corp. They was like, hey, maybe if we go here and we can get this pass key. And they just go on to say, I like the dialogue in between Mantis and Peter Quill during their time, and her saying, hey, you know, you're so upset right now because you're feeling like you've lost everybody, but once you go visit your grandpa. I loved all of that. However, for them to hype up Ogle Corp so much, and that it's the company of the High Evolutionary, and it's the security is up to the wazoo, I felt that whole entire mission was just far too easy for the Guardians, and it really bothered the hell out of me, especially when I don't know that actor's name, but he was one of the main security guards there with the funny looking suit on.
Nathan Fillion. Yeah.
Thank you. I feel like I should know that. Nathan Fillion. I know I'm gonna get ripped up in the comments for that, but that's okay. But when they had him surrounded in that facility, or when Gamora had the gun to the red person's face and they were just able to walk out of there, I thought the whole entire sequence was ridiculous. Like, yeah, you got 10 guns that surrounded these people right here, and they're just able to, like, Groot don't even have a weapon. He's just able to fling people around with his arm, like shoot him in the back, shoot him in the leg. Somebody can be up top and it's like snap. I was very, very frustrated with this. And this was towards the beginning of the movie. So I didn't like that at all. Sorry, Marvel. Sorry, James Gunn. I'm just being honest. Y'all did not iron out all the wrinkles there, in my opinion. Elliot, am I tripping? Do you agree or disagree? How are you feeling about that whole? And you can talk on more. Them going through the shields and Gamora popping up with Nebula and the contact, and then Sylvester Stallone and all of the Ravagers. Comment on all of that, but it wasn't really working for me when they infiltrated the facility.
Yeah, I think it played very much so. Well, first off, to going back to like the creature design, this was, to Eman's very first point, this was a James Gunn film. Like the design of the Overcourt was like weird and slimy, and I think of Slither, I think of his time with Trauma, with making all that crazy stuff. So this was definitely a James Gunn design that he was probably super excited about.
That was a good part.
Yeah.
That was the best, just how creative it was.
Like in general, because one of your first points was like the whole post-production was, is he focused on it? This film was gorgeous to look at. Like this was, the last few films, there was the VFX conversation about them being rushed. This was not a rush film. This was a well done movie as far as visually speaking, and especially when we get to the practical effects of all the creatures on Counter Earth. This was a gorgeous film to look at, and the set was great as far as Overcourt goes. But yes, to your point, Brandon, the second view time, this is the point of the film that I wish was revised, or there was another mission involved, because it was a little bit over the top for me. Some of the jokes ran too long, especially you got a doofus, I got a doofus too, and Nathan Fillion, who's in literally every James Gunn film. That's like his best friend, and as we know at this point, he likes to put his friends and family in a lot of his films, which I don't have any issues with. But yeah, the scene was, I think, meant to be just a good old classic, funny Guardians type of adventure that doesn't really come with a lot of pushback from their adversaries and the henchmen. It was meant to, and it wasn't, listen, I'll say that it wasn't as easy, because as I'll get to later, there was a lot of fake out deaths moments that were like overhyped to, Drax being shot in the back and maybe showing that he's going to be meeting his demise, which wasn't the case. And there was many other characters that were almost died and didn't die. But anyway, it was a bit challenging, but at the end of the day, we got to remember this is the Guardians of the Galaxy. They have faced Thanos and Ronan, and they beat a planet. They beat Ego. So if they can beat a planet, I'm sure they could beat these gobbledygooks, that seem to be very incompetent. They established that very early. These are maybe not the smartest people. So I was okay with them defeating them at the rate they did.
I don't know why that's so funny to me, but I like the word gobbledygooks or whatever.
They were like Power Rangers, like putty rangers. They were like little goofy villains.
As you said, when Drax got shot in the back, and then Nebula got shot, I'm like, why didn't y'all do that 5 minutes ago? Like, damn. So yeah, I was like this. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, Eman, how you feel about that whole sequence in the first act or transition to the second one? Did it work for you? Did it not? How you feeling, sir?
It was fine. I mean, it's James Gunn. Like, he gonna throw in a little Scooby-Doo adventure chase scene in there. Listen, I mean, this is why I said it. You got to be a fan of James Gunn. You have to know how he operates and what he does. Like the banter, this has always been a constant criticism of me for James Gunn. His banter and dialogue sometimes goes too long. Like he don't know, like he'll have something funny. It's kind of like the Saturday Night Live situation. You got a great idea. It's a funny interaction, but it just goes on too long and you don't know when to stop when you're ahead. So like, that whole scene felt like that. And, I don't know. While I was watching it, I was just like, first of all, I was definitely impressed and captivated with all the visuals. I love the visuals, the whole organic ship thing and all that. Yeah, it was creepy. It was weird. It was type of looking. But at the same time, I was like, I can't stop looking at it. Like, it's so unique. So I totally give him points for, originality in that sense. And yeah, I totally agree with Elliot that like the VFX here, they was on point. Like I didn't see anything here that kind of made me cringe or whatever, from a visual standpoint with the effects. But this was like definitely one of his best visual accomplishments, I think, with his films. But yeah, I mean, as for the scene, the mission, I mean, it's just more the same. Like I wasn't surprised, again, this is just like the holiday special. Like, like they gonna go on these quirky adventures, and there you have it.
That is exactly my two criticisms of this movie. The first one is the scene, the sequence we just talked about. When they actually get in, not everything led up. But the second thing is I felt that the jokes ran a little bit too long. Now, I like where the jokes was placed, because I always say, okay, Marvel, I like the jokes, I love the jokes, but you always put them in the wrong spot, like during the third act, during battle, when they're fighting, when they're at war. No, Russo brothers, like you said last time we did this, Elliot, they're the only ones that have been successful at putting jokes or funny moments during serious times. And Winter Soldier, it was when Nick Fury was in the SUV and the Hydra was attacking him, and the AI was talking. He was like, "What works?" And he was like, "The windshield wipers work, or the blinkers." That was funny. In Civil War, when it was Spider-Man versus Winter Soldier and Falcon, and he got webbed up, and Winter Soldier was like, "I hate you." That was funny. Of course, we talked about in Infinity War, I am Groot, I am Steve Rogers, funny. And then when they try to switch hammers and Mjolnir and Stormbreaker in Endgame, all those is funny. All that's the Russo brothers. So I will give it to James Gunn. He did not mess up the comedy in this film by putting it in the third act or putting it during serious moments of fighting, battle, and war. I got to give it there. The jokes were funny in this film, but they just ran a little too long. And you spoke about this, Eman, but we can talk about this now as well. Tyson, Peter Quill and Gamora. When he first started trying to spit his game, when they was trying to cut the mucus or the membrane outside, and he was like, "So you really don't remember anything?" And the whole intercom thing, it just went on a little bit too long for me. You know, I did laugh, I did chuckle. Also, when they was on Counter Earth, and Drax kept trying to take a nap on the couch and put his feet on the, it was. I think that it was just a little bit too long for me or whatever. And so, yeah, you know, Eman, myself, you know, just kind of felt like the jokes ran a little bit too long. It was well placed, but just a little bit too long. But you talked about Gamora and Quill, Eman, Quill and Gamora. I like that aspect of the movie.
I like the aspect too. I just thought they could have pushed it forward quicker.
Okay.
I'm not saying take it out. It was important. Gamora and Peter were a big part of the first and second movie. Like, that was a thing. I'm not saying it was a problem in itself. I was just like, look, do we need 4 or 5 different interactions having the same conversation over and over and over again?
It worked for me, man. I didn't have any criticisms. And I know we agree here. Well, I've heard people criticize the MCU saying that it's the fake death universe. You know, I just disagree. I mean, Quicksilver is still dead, Coulson is still dead, Black Widow's still dead, and Gamora, one of the characters. This is not the same Gamora. I am so happy that Peter Quill and Gamora did not end this film being together. I would have been upset. It would have tainted everything and made the loss mean nothing. But Peter Quill is on Earth, and she is off with the Ravagers. And I love the way it's Gamora, but it's not the same Gamora. And even then they addressed that big time at the very beginning of the movie when they was on Nowhere. The way that she was treating him, the way that she was talking to him, the way that she pushed his ass up against the wall, like, what is so wrong with you that you need there to be something special about me? She actually said, "I don't give a shit," or something like that. And I was like, damn,
that's good writing. That was good writing. I did like that.
Yes, I love that. I'm like, she is questioning this, and I don't blame him. He can't help it. Like, if I was in Peter Quill's shoes, I would probably be doing the same thing. Like, babe, you don't understand. We was a thing, you know what I'm saying? Like, what's up?
It's deeper for him though, and this is why I appreciate James Gunn, because I think he does project a lot of his own issues on his characters. You know, Peter has abandonment issues, you know, and that goes all the way back to his mom. You know, like, his mom left him. His dad, well, you know, screwed him over, you know, and he even talked about his grandpa, how he was like, man, my grandpa pushed me out the door and all that. So, like, he's, you know, he's always been looking for someone to be dependent to, you know, or to connect with. And that's a problem, right? Like, he don't know how to be cool by himself. You know, that is a problem in itself. Like, he needs to grow up in that aspect. But this is something linked all the way to his past, where, like, man, if you find something good or someone like even Yondu, you know, like, Yondu was out here having this dude, you know, stealing and breaking crimes, but it didn't matter because he was still a father figure to him. He was still someone he can attach to. So I understood and I appreciated what Gunn was trying to do in creating that level of attachment with Peter, because it was stemming all the way from his childhood.
Gotcha. Well said, man. Elliot, how'd you feel about the whole Peter Quill and Gamora aspect? Did it work for you? Not? Where you at, sir? Where you at?
I'm kind of in the middle with it because just thinking back on hindsight, obviously James Gunn came out and said that, he would have he wasn't the biggest fans of how the Guardians kind of where the story tread was left after Infinity War and Endgame, even though I know the Russos like consulted with him on like character traits, but I think the decisions that were made, whether it was, Peter risking the universe to fight Thanos or punch Thanos on the face when they were getting the Infinity Gauntlet to obviously killing Gamora. So I don't know. I think they're, looking back at it, I wish they maybe didn't kill Gamora and they would have just figured out another way to creatively have that impact, be involved in Infinity War. And even thinking back in Thor: Love and Thunder, I don't even know why they were in that film at this point. Just thinking back on it now, literally no point to that movie at all. But as far as, so that's the indifferent part of it. The positive, I will, to Eman's point, to your point too, Brandon, as far as just thinking about it conceptually, as far as this idea that he never really got a chance to really process what happened to Gamora. Because if you think about Infinity War, he found out that she died, punched Thanos, fought Thanos, got blipped, came back, fought, saved the world, went to a funeral for Tony Stark, and then he sees Gamora again. It's like, what is happening right now? So it is something. And again, going back to, that was something that stemmed from Endgame. We really didn't see that reaction of him processing the grieving until we really got into the holiday special, and obviously at the beginning of this film, he's in a bar and moping and all this stuff. So I think from a character perspective, it still makes sense that he hasn't fully accepted that she died, but now she's back. I'm just trying to put my mind around it.
Yeah.
If I thought someone died and then we find out that the past of them is back, it would mess you up. So I do think that there is some merit to his reaction to her and constantly being like, remember. But then eventually, after, like you said earlier, Brandon, and I do want to applaud Mantis and Drax were two characters that I really have not cared for at all, especially Drax after Volume 1. But this film really did give them a purpose to this film, emotionally, story-wise, and also character progression. So I do appreciate those conversations that she had with Mantis, or through Drax from Mantis' words, to really kind of get him on another lily pad, to do his own swimming. So I appreciate kind of how they got him out of his slump to a certain degree. He accepted the fact that isn't the Gamora that he met, back in Guardians 1. So again, it's a hit or miss thing to me. I wish it was maybe executed a little bit better. And honestly, I just go back on it. I do wish that maybe Gamora didn't die in Infinity War.
Yeah, that would have been nice. And also, Elliot, I agree with you. I agree with both of you. But Elliot, I definitely agree with you 100% about the Mantis and the Drax the Destroyer.
Especially Drax.
This was their best outing out of everything to me, even the holiday special. But I'm gonna touch on that in just a second. But staying on you, Elliot, and Gamora. Not only did I like the relationship that she had with Peter Quill, is this there was still one between her and Nebula. Unlike Nebula in this as well, their little inside greetings where they looked at each other, that still held true from years ago, because this is the present day Nebula and the past Gamora, but they still kind of have that sisterhood. And she was just saying, I just left Thanos. So her relationship with Nebula is valid. Eman, I see you shaking your head. I can't wait to see what you're talking about. But Elliot, real quick, how do you feel about Gamora and Nebula's relationship throughout this?
To me, listen, I like Volume 2, but it's not the greatest. But in that film, I really enjoyed their relationship, and I love that we do continue to get that. It was almost kind of like akin to, Thor: Dark World trash, but that was the best low key in Thor to me, as far as their brother, their complicated relationship. So I've always appreciated Gamora and Nebula's relationship, and in this one too. They didn't get as many scenes, but there were moments that, as you just mentioned, that Gamora, they almost kind of switched roles, where Gamora was kind of the closed off, cold-hearted one in 1 and 2, but now that's obviously with, switched out with Gamora here. But I love that Nebula stepped up for Peter. And, when that scene you talked about when she pushed him against the computer or whatever, this is family now, right? And she was talking about Rocket, like, yeah, he's family too. Which, by the way, that arm is OP. That Bucky, Wakanda revised T-1000 arm is on another level. But no, I do appreciate that through line that we get with that sister between the two. Again, I wish there was maybe a little bit more of it. Because how do we feel about Nebula? She never really processed that her sister's gone, and this is another version of her sister. So you really never fully fleshed that character out as far as how she feels about it. But we all know she doesn't really have the most emotions. But again, I do appreciate their relationship.
Right on. Eman, where you at on that? The Nebula
So,
and Gamora.
I mean, when it comes to their sisterhood, I thought they nailed that. Like that part was fine. What I didn't really care too much for was I felt like Nebula took a step back in her development as a character. It was almost like Volume 2 never happened. It was almost as if, Infinity War and Endgame never happened, where, she's been with the Guardians for some time. She's fought with the Guardians for some time. She's learned how to be with other people, being stuck in space with Tony Stark. This, like the Nebula in this movie felt very different than the other Nebulas that we've seen over the time in the other movies and other situations. Because I was sitting there, I was like, why is she so mean? Like, why is she such a jerk to Drax and to Mantis? And like I don't understand why she's acting like this, like she don't know them. Like she hasn't been around them for years at this point. It just didn't really add up. But yeah, the whole thing with her and Gamora totally made sense because we are supposed to see a shift. We are supposed to see where Gamora has softened, over the years before her death. This variant is going backwards, right? Like it's almost the same thing with Loki in the Loki series. We're going back to the 2012 Loki that hasn't gone through everything and hasn't grown. So then they have a different path to take. So I understood that with Gamora, but this Nebula version, I was like, it almost felt like we didn't really get all the things that she had learned over time to be, I thought, a little bit softer, a little bit more understanding, a little bit more sympathetic and empathetic. The fact that she was like, she was tearing Drax a new one, like almost every other time. And I felt bad for Drax sometimes, when they was roasting him, calling him stupid and everything. I was like, dang, man, he ain't that stupid
lying.
now.
They were not lying, though.
I mean, they weren't, but they have to say it in his face. They have to be rude about it. But no, I mean, again, that's a minor thing. But I was just a little bit surprised given how close attention James Gunn pays to characters. I just felt like Nebula felt a little out of character at times, but when she interacted with her sister, she was back on track.
Can I say one point to that, Brandon, before we move on?
Yeah.
I will say, and to Eman's point, so the way, and just hearing you talk about it, and I totally agree with you. I think the way I'm kind of perceiving it is because they are a big family, and I think there are like a power shift or power pyramid or whatnot. Because like I feel like when she's interacting, like you mentioned, when she's interacting with Gamora, even Peter, and even Rocket, there's like a level of like respect that she has. She's almost like kind of like the middle sister. And then I look at like Drax and Mantis as like the younger siblings. Like she's the middle one and she treats them, like you just mentioned, kind of like, shut up, listen to me, follow me. But then when she's on the level with Captain Peter and Nebula or Gamora and Rocket, she has a little bit more respect for them. Because I think going back to her sympathy, when she found out that Rock was still alive, she cried. I've never seen Nebula get that emotional. So I do think there was just like, you got the big bros, you got the middle sister, which might be Nebula. And then when you come down to the younger sibling, she treats them like the big brothers would treat their kids is like, hey, man, you little one, be quiet. So that's how I kind of looked at that
fair
dynamic.
I think that's fair.
Right on. I can dig it. Eman, staying with you. And since you mentioned Drax the Destroyer, I liked him in this film. I feel like he actually was, we got to see a decent amount of his physicality. And the jokes worked he earned the name Destroyer in a way. He can take a hit and deliver one, and he can arm wrestle and all that. I think y'all, you know what I'm talking about, but we're gonna get there. But you spoke about the holiday special a lot, and two of the prominent characters in that film were Drax and was also Mantis, this character right here. I did enjoy the holiday special, and I enjoyed them for the most part in that special. I keep saying special over and over again, special. But I liked them even more in this. How did you feel about Drax? How did you feel about Mantis and the whole relationship, the whole dynamic, sir?
So when it comes to Mantis, I actually kind of felt like she was rushed a little bit. Like this movie felt very, very like packed with all these characters and all these stories. And I think that Mantis probably got the short end of the stick. Yes, I understand where her character went. Yes, I understand what the direction was for it. I just thought it was kind of rushed. It was kind of like, oh, we got to hurry up and wrap up Mantis like real quick, so let's give her something to just do. But when it came to Drax, I appreciated what happened with Drax here more than what they did in Volume 2. I thought Volume 2 was an atrocity. I thought Volume 2 butchered Drax's character, and I'll never forgive James Gunn for that, because when he introduced Drax in the Volume 1, it was perfect. This dude is a killer. He lost his family. He only got one goal, and that is to destroy things. And he don't understand metaphors and figurative language. And all the comedy was built around him. I loved it. It was perfect. And then Volume 2 made him into this doofus that just wanted to like try and crack jokes and be silly and be dumb. And it was like, there was no need for that. It was no need. You know, you could have progressed his character in different ways, but that to me was terrible. So this time, I like the fact that he wasn't as goofy. He wasn't as slapstick. He wasn't forcing himself to tell jokes and stuff. Even though he did have a couple good lines here and there, right? But the one thing, and this just hit me just because I'm a dad. Ooh, that last line. Drax, you were never meant to be a destroyer. You were meant to be a dad. Oh,
yeah, that was fire.
Ooh, just that right there. That's how you bring a character full circle. Because when you really look at Drax's character, yes, we know in the comics he was supposed to be a killing machine for only Thanos. Well, that ship has sailed because James Gunn don't like the comics apparently. But what we did get here was a character full circle, because that was always part of his character, his family, his wife, his daughter, like the fact that he lost them, but now he gained a new, sense of fatherhood, a new family to take care of. That perfect. That to me made up for the atrocities made to his character in Volume 2. So I really like that. And like I said, Mantis, I felt like they just kind of sprinkled her in wherever they could. But I'm happy for her, I guess,
I got you. Elia, you may have already spoke on this, but yeah, how did you feel about Mantis and Drax and their whole relationship or lack thereof, sir?
Yeah, I think the Mantis of it all, again, is kind of coming in the middle of a trilogy, part 2, and trying to give her something to do is a complicated thing, I would imagine. And she played many different, as I mentioned, she kind of is the little sister, and she's the little sister to the big brother of Drax, and sticking with him all the time. And then she kind of has almost, I don't want to say a motherly instinct, but she kind of has that voice in the room where she's like, hey Drax, go talk to, like a mom would do, hey, go talk to your brother, he's down right now. So she had moments where I kind of really appreciated her not just being an idiot and just being dumb and oblivious to things. And there are moments in the film when they have that, especially with her and Drax, and they're the Three Stooges moments. But I enjoyed what they did with Mantis, and I'm very curious to see where they take her now with her on her journey of self-discovery. That might be another, you bringing up special this whole time, Brandon. They might be a special come next year, the journeys of Mantis. But the Drax of it all, I couldn't agree with Eman more. This was a huge redemption from him, because I won't put full blame on James Gunn in the second one. Obviously, he's the writer, director. Honestly, the way I think at Guardians 2, because I watched it the other night, maybe that was a day, because I know he works so closely with his actors. Maybe that was a Dave Bautista note, like, hey, I want to maybe be a little bit more, because we know he's trying to flex his acting muscle. He wants to be in a Bond film. He's in Denis Villeneuve films. So I think he maybe went to James like, hey, I want to be a little funnier this time around. So maybe that's the case. But he was terrible in 2. Like, I really did not enjoy what they did with him. But this film definitely redeemed him. Literally from the opening set piece where he is throwing hands with Adam Warlock and not being like all jokey and funny. He's like, no, we about to get down. So I appreciated that, and that he even acknowledged himself as a destroyer. So I love that they brought that back to the character, that he is, he can throw hands, man. And I appreciate that. But that's all fun and games. That's cool. It's entertaining. The emotional aspect of Drax, like Eman said, that line and him, rallying up the kids and being that fatherly figure, calming them down, was just, complete opposite of like Thor and Thor Love and Thunder, when the kids was all scared, and he's making them even more scared, but Drax is like naturally having that type of instinct, was something I really appreciated. And it goes to show you again, just from a Dave Bautista perspective, that he's come a long way as an actor, and just continues to show that he has range. He could be goofy, slapstick, funny. He could be menacing and threatening, but can also be sympathetic. He's a big teddy bear. So I really do think that this third film, to me, really redeemed Drax and showed you that he's more than just the butt of the joke. He can crack jokes. He can be with the jokes. He can, like I said, do the action. So I was very, very pleased with where they landed with Drax. And then especially, like I said, talk about getting emotional with the dad scene. When he said goodbye to Mantis and he's waving and crying and getting emotional, I'm like, yo, this is hitting the beats because we've been following these characters for almost 10 years. So I really do appreciate what they did with both characters, Mantis and Drax in this third one.
I like him dancing at the end too.
Scale.
Yeah.
So what?
I was mad for a long time. They did not show Drax's true power, and I'm glad that they finally exhibited that.
I mean, opening up ships and doors and banging. I'm like,
flipping people and everything. I love it.
Yes.
Can't
now we need to do that with the Hulk. Can we?
Yes.
Bring him back to form.
Please. Can't wait to talk about who he was flexing with, but we're coming to that. Elliot, I'm gonna stay on you. Wait, was there something else I wanted to say? Oh yeah, I like the way he was dancing. That was cute at the end. I kind of got a chuckle out of that. Boop, boop. Yeah, yes. And he was smart. He came through in the clutch. You know what I'm saying? Hey, stay away from the doors. That we finna blast them. We don't want y'all to, so good
speaking
stuff.
Different languages.
Yeah,
hey, man,
he was over there. He was over there. But yeah, staying with you, Elliot. Next two characters I want to discuss real quick. Is Cosmo. And also Kraglin, James Gunn's where's the poster? That's Gamora. I can't. Is that him? Yeah, that's Kraglin. How did you feel about them, sir? We got Cosmo, got a little origin story of him. He a few lines of dialogue. It was kind of funny. Kraglin, I always called him a bad dog, but Cosmo was like, hey, back in I think the 60s or the 70s, the Russians flew me up into space and they didn't think I was gonna survive, and I just kind of out here ever since. And Kraglin taking over the red arrow from Yondu from the past film. I will say this: I like that he wasn't able to master it. He was playing with it at the end of 2, but he was still struggling with it in this film in volume 3. And correct me if I'm wrong, like Kraglin and Yondu, they weren't like related. They were just both in the same group. Am I
within the MCU or like comic wise?
In the MCU, I don't know.
I think he just kind of picked him up like Peter, because in the Holiday Special they show when he was a kid with Peter, so like he was like almost like their sons.
Gotcha. But I like Cosmo and Kraglin. They were cool additions. I don't have any complaints about them. I'm not saying that they was the best thing in the world, but they worked for me. They was cool. How did you feel about both of them?
Yeah, no, they were just extra. To set them up, because they, if we do, which I would imagine we're gonna get more of these Guardians, they're part of the new team. So this was just kind of more of just, we're not focusing on them because it's not their films, but they're just reminding us that these are characters that we can probably look forward to learning more about in the future. But yeah, being a dog owner myself, I thought that, when you do tell your dog, good job, how excited they get versus when you tell them bad, it is very much like they try to, create. I love dogs, man. They really try to, I'm not bad. Let me show you. I'm a good dog. So I did like that back and forth they had in the film. And then Kraglin, I mean, he didn't really, besides him, having the moment with the cameo from Yondu, which is a great character. I appreciated that moment, but I wouldn't walk out of the theater and say, I can't wait to get more of them. But at the same time, I wasn't like, oh, I wish that we wouldn't focus so much on them, because I thought it was just, it was just there just to remind us that they're doing their thing. And they played a big role into what happened, obviously, with Kraglin making sure everyone was safe with the, when they were on Nowhere, and then obviously Cosmo helping them with the transformation of bringing all the people over. So they were fine.
Before I pass the email, I want to throw one more character in there as well. This one right here, Mr. Groot. How did you feel about Mr. Groot? Every time we see him, whether it's a movie or a holiday special, he has a different transformation.
Yeah.
He was throwing hands too.
Yeah.
Versus Adam Warlock at the beginning, wrapped him up. Had just a little hair with the spider twigs going on. Groot. How did you feel about Groot as well?
Cosmo and Kraglin.
Real quick, because I'm doing this on purpose, because I want to start with you.
Set it up with
on a good topic. So hold
alley oop to the Adam Warlock.
Yeah, I'm an alley up email, but Elliot.
Yeah, quick thoughts on Groot.
On Groot.
Yeah. Okay. It's fine. Groot's fine. I love Groot in part 1 and love how they use him, as a character. It was cool to kind of get the different variations, like you said. He's always, just like a tree. He's always changing his appearance throughout the different seasons. But yeah, we got Kaiju Groot, we got Alpha Groot at the end of the film, so he was cool. We saw him go beast mode a couple times. So again, nothing that I would be like rooting and raving about, but I was fine with the usage of Groot in this film and the different versions of the character.
I kind of think, and you can comment on this if you want, Eman. I kind of think they cheated a little bit, though, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. When Groot was fighting Adam Warlock towards the beginning of the film, he was damn near destroyed, and Groot only had a head left with the little twigs walking around, but he grew back so fast. I thought that should take some time, because when he was destroyed in the first one, it took him a long time to get back big, or teenage Groot.
What did they use? Because wasn't he down to like just a splinter or something?
Right.
Like that?
That's why. Yeah.
Okay,
I thought.
okay.
Yeah. That's,
like it's
that's
different if his head is there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like maybe that's the difference. I had the same thoughts too. Like how he grow back so fast.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming if you have the head still, I mean, it's aliens, it's sci-fi, it's made up.
Okay. And plus, too, listen, talk about a cheat code. Those little medical pads that they had in this film. I mean, I need them to go ahead and give those to the Avengers and send some to Earth, because them things
they were sitting on them.
Yeah, I'm like,
they was just sitting on them. Tony Stark out here dying.
Right.
They were sitting on them.
I got like 6 of them in the back.
Had a whole cabinet full.
Yeah.
Not even that. I was like, yo, wasn't Peter Quill passed out drunk? My man got up real fast.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
Anyway.
So stay on Groot, Kraglin, and Cosmo. How'd you feel,
sir?
So
Kraglin and Cosmo, everything about them screamed Disney Plus special. Nothing about them made this movie essential, except for the end scene where obviously they step up and he finally uses the arrow, and the dog uses the telekinesis or whatnot. But outside of that, like going to the poker game and all that. Now, don't get me wrong, I loved the joke about the whole like bad dog. I laughed because I got a dog too. Yeah. My dog, his whole feelings be hurt if I yell at him. Like, it's done. His day is over with, right?
Yeah.
So that I thought was fantastic. But again, I think that this was just one of those type of things where you have so many characters already to deal with. You have so much of a story that you already want to talk about. This kind of felt like some of the fat that could have been trimmed a little bit. Not saying that they shouldn't have had a part at all, but like they had some quality minutes here, and it's not enough for me to be like invested in them. I like the joke. Do I care about the characters? Not so much. The whole Kraglin thing, getting his, learning the arrow and all that. I'm like, you literally could have been doing this during the holiday special. Like, we could have just got that out the way. That's where you go for that. Like, because again, listen, I'm trying to think about when I go to these movies, I'm going there for the main attractions. I'm not there to keep watching all the side shows, right? Like, this is supposed to be the meat and potatoes, and you keep giving me asparagus. Like, I mean, I like asparagus, but like, come on now. Give me some more of the steak, and the potatoes. But anyway, when it came to Groot, I did like the fact that we got different variations of Groot. I thought that was pretty cool. Like I said, I like the fact that, I understood the fact that he was able to grow and stuff like that. I like how they used him in different ways, especially when they were fighting the High Evolutionary and Peter had like all those weapons inside of him. I thought that was really cool.
Yes.
The Kaiju Groot, I'm still a little iffy on, because I'm like, you've had that in your back pocket all this time. Yeah. Like, I feel like that could have came in handy during Endgame. I feel like we could have used Kaiju Groot, but maybe he was too young. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
But of course, like the biggest thing with Groot was like at the very end where he actually got to talk. Now, first of all, I blame Vin Diesel for that. Because I'm more than positive Vin Diesel was like, look, it's been 10 years.
Yeah.
This is all about family. Let me say something else. Let me please say something. And at first, I thought it was kind of cheap. Okay? At first, I thought it was kind of cheap. But after having a conversation with somebody else who saw the movie, I'm going to lean on this one theory that might actually explain how this actually makes sense. Because the one thing that we never really understood is, how the hell does everybody know what Groot be saying? We don't know. Like, apparently people just know these alien languages or whatever. And Gamora was a great example of this. I don't remember from the previous movies if she understood him or not, but this Gamora was like, I don't know what you're saying.
Right.
Like, what is going on?
Right?
You know, I don't get it. Right?
That was funny though.
Captain America, he didn't know what Groot was saying. He was
Right.
just like, I am Groot. Okay, like I'm Steve Rogers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until the very end that she finally was like, okay, I get it. Like she just magically started to understand what it is. So I think that whatever happened with Gamora happened with us as well, the
as audience.
And
Yeah,
I'm leaning on that you know what, now we just so happen to understand what Groot says. So
I got you, man. I always wrote it off as like they can translate what he's saying based off the tone and inflection.
I was thinking that too, but they was getting mad detail off of that though.
Right?
It's like, oh, so you jumped off the ship, and then you glided, and then you landed, and then you did this. Oh, okay,
right.
Right.
Yeah, I ain't mad at you, but I'm just like, you know, what the hell? But it was funny when she was like, y'all. She either said it or made a statement or asked a question like, y'all just making up stuff that he's saying or whatever. I got a good chuckle out of that. But yeah, if you watching this in the comment in the chat, y'all, of course, y'all let us know what what all of you're thinking about. We are dying to know. But now I'm going to stay on Eman, and I am going to ask him his most favorite part of the whole movie. We're talking about this character right here. I know it's his favorite. Oh, can y'all hear that?
You are in my mind.
Get him.
All right, I'll play a little later. I don't want to get this video claimed, but Adam Warlock, he was introduced in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 in the post-credit scene with a cocoon, and they hyped it up like he was just going to be the baddest of the baddest of the baddest of the baddest. And I'm not going to stunt. I don't know who all of Adam Warlock is, but I've heard every nerd, every geek online just talk about how powerful he is and that he can do this, and he got the soul gem in his head. And if we just go over to the internet, in his original incarnation, when he was known as him, Warlock could project blasts of cosmic energy from his hands as concussive forces, fly at vast speeds, travel to different dimensions, create a solar vortexes, molecular walls, and flame barriers. He has been played by this gentleman, Mr. Will Poulter, who I am a fan of. I think he's pretty good, and he finally made his not directorial debut, but debut in this film as Adam Warlock, part of the Sovereign. But I'm coming to you first, E-Man. How did you feel about this depiction of this supposed powerful character, sir?
So right off the bat, you know, with the movie starting off, we see Adam Warlock just beelining in straight for Rocket, and he is just tearing stuff up. And I was here for all of that, because that to me was like, yes, here we go. This guy is super powerful. You know, he's no joke. And he just bust out on the scene just out of nowhere. And even from the comics, that's just kind of like how he was introduced. Like, he just literally popped up during the Infinity Saga, and he was like, I'm going to help y'all with this whole Thanos thing, you know, with him having all the stones and all that. Like, he was the equalizer. He was the one thing. When Thanos was clearing everybody out, Adam Warlock was the one that came through. Not saying he just whooped everybody, but he was the one thing that made a huge difference in the Infinity Saga. So it was already kind of disappointing when not only did we get that hype of Guardians 2 that Adam Warlock was coming. Keep in mind, this was right before Infinity War was coming. So we was like, oh man, Adam Warlock, Infinity War, it's about to go down, because Infinity War was the Infinity Saga was really, that was all Adam Warlock. That was his bread and butter, right? And when he wasn't used in the whole Infinity Saga, it was kind of like, so what y'all gonna do with him? Like, what's the point? You know, because that was literally everything that really catapulted this character into stardom, right? But like, even when that was done, okay, we saw that he was coming for this movie. I was like, all right, I'm interested to see what he does, but I have no idea what role he's going to play, because this is not some sort of throwaway character. Like, he usually shows up when things are at a cosmic problematic level. Like, he is like, when you know he shows up, something is really about to go down. And then James Gunn got involved. And then James Gunn did what he did to this character. And I would say that this is probably my biggest turnoff to this movie, is the depiction and interpretation of this character. Now, let me also be very clear, because I know people like to say repetitive things in the comments. I've been with the MCU for a long time. I've read comic books for a long time. I understand that the MCU is not the place to have direct comic adaptations. Totally get that. No need to lecture me on that whatsoever. However, this iteration of Adam Warlock was terrible, in my opinion. What James Gunn did with them was absolutely unnecessary. I was not in favor of the fact of, hey, let's go make him a big dumb galoot again. I don't know why this is a thing for James Gunn. I don't know why he finds so much of like a go-to move to make powerful characters like stupid and like just kind of immature or whatever. Like, he doesn't have to, he made him into a man-child basically. And don't get me wrong, I understand the writing. Okay, I understood what happened. He was in the egg. He got taken out prematurely. I totally understand that, but I just don't like it. It doesn't work for me, because at the end of the day, when this movie is all said and done, he was the most useless character. Now, yes, he did come in. He saved Peter at the end, but everything else before that, I didn't care. They could have sent them pigs, them little other pigs. The Evolutionary could have sent them pigs to go get Rocket, and not Adam Warlock. Like, it was just really like, why are you here? What are you doing except for comic relief? So, and for the people that don't know about Adam Warlock, I would say this. It's almost like if, let's say you have someone like Wolverine, right? Okay, yeah, maybe you don't read the comics, but Wolverine, you have a sense maybe of like what that character's like, but he shows up and he's like, yo, I want my mommy. I want a hug. Can somebody do this for me? Like, that depiction of that character is so far off that it's like, I can't even mess with this. And it was distracting, to be honest with you. Like, so no, I don't like this character. I don't like what James Gunn did with him. I'm not even looking forward to what they will do with this character moving forward, because the way they set him up right now, what am I supposed to care about? What am I supposed to care about? At this point, I'm just waiting for him to grow up. I'm waiting for him to kind of mature into something. But even at that point, you've regulated this character who, again, just from the comics, was such a pivotal figure. He didn't even really mess with average day heroes and stuff. Like, this is the person that was like, yo, I'm talking to Infinity. I'm talking to Eternity. I'm talking to the Living Tribunal. Like, that's the level that this dude is usually on. And now you regulated him as just another person on the team. And I don't care. I don't care. So maybe this works for other people, and that's totally fine. Maybe it works for people that don't know who Adam Warlock is. Totally understandable. But for me, I don't like it. It doesn't work for me. It's not my cup of tea. And I think it was just a waste of time and a waste of this character.
I ain't mad at you for that, man. I'm really not. And you're not lying. Towards the beginning of this, when he starts fighting Rocket, like all this was cool. I like the physicality of it. Rocket getting out of there. He hit him with the kill switch, and then your girl Nebula coming through, blasting him.
Yep.
I liked all that.
That was dope.
I really did. The way he flings her into the wall, and it's coming up. When he was fighting Drax, I was like, damn, all of this was cool. The physicality was nice, but even myself, not being an expert on, I just know about Adam Warlock from hearing other people on the internet, Eman and other people talk about him, and I did expect more. I did not like the goofy silliness. They even tried to put it in the plot a little bit like High Evolutionary. You took him out of the cocoon too early. you know, but still, I don't want to say my expectations were just super high for him, but I was expecting more. You know, I mean, the guy has everything you said, E-Man, has supposedly supposed to have the soul gem in his head, and you know, talk to the big people that are ruling the universe, but you know, he was reduced down to a child.
By the way, why would the High Evolutionary want to take him out early? Just like someone who's obsessed with perfection, someone who's obsessed with the process being completed perfectly. What sense would that? I mean, maybe I'm asking y'all because y'all saw it twice. That didn't make sense to me. That seemed like a contrary to the actual guy's character and the whole point of the movie. Why would he rush something that wasn't ready?
Good question, Elliot. Do you have an answer?
I pointed towards, and this is just me just trying to come up with something. I pointed towards the scene where he was not interrogating, when we took Rocket out and said, "How did you know this? You're my creation. You're not supposed to, you know, fix my issues, or whatever." So I took it as whenever his creation creates something without his approval, without his hands in being involved. Because we know that the Aisha, the High Princess, she made Adam Warlock. She wasn't told to make him. That was her creation. So I almost took it as like he's kind of interfering with her creations, because he doesn't want his creations to ever be above him or to create something that's above his intelligent level. So that's what I pointed towards, that he kind of just almost affected her perfection, perfected her project, sabotage it, because he doesn't want someone that he created to be higher than him on that level. So that's what I'm pointing towards potentially.
Okay.
All right.
Did it work for you though? Like, how do you feel about Adam Warlock as a whole in this film?
In general, so to Eman's point, so my knowledge with him only boils down to when I read the Infinity Gauntlet comic book run, and that was my introduction to him. And I'm like, this dude is OP. Like everything you just read of his power skills, like that is another level, just like a reset the earth type of character. So my expectations were thrown out once Infinity War and Endgame happened, that I knew he was going to be involved in that. So I kind of just lowered, whenever we see him, I already kind of calibrated my mind that he's going to be not what I want him to be. And the way I kind of look at this interpretation is the same way I look at Vision. And also too, I think Vision was like the Adam Warlock of the Infinity War and Endgame. They kind of just substituted that character. But I look at the way that they're building Adam Warlock is very much so in the same vein as Vision and you know, Age of Ultron. He was a baby. He was just born. He wasn't fully developed. And we kind of, as you know, Civil War happened, Infinity War, and obviously we got him in WandaVision. And then the next time we'll see him, I'm hoping that is the fully formed version of Vision, you know, White Vision and all the stuff that we're going to see with Vision Quest. So to Eman's point, I will play devil's advocate. I definitely agree with you that this was not the best intro. You know, you only get one time to do a first impression. His first impression wasn't the best, but I hope that it has a payoff, because if we are getting this infant stage of Adam Warlock, hopefully whoever takes on this mantle of carrying the character's interpretation and development gives us those seeds that, again, you meet Vision and Age of Ultron, we see him again in Civil War and so on and so forth. And the next time we hopefully see Vision, he's going to be, again, fully fledged, ready to go about that action Vision. And I hope the same could be said maybe 3, 4, 5 years from, you know, Adam Warlock. We met him as a kid, and now this man is OP. This man is they built the character to make it worth our while and make us worth this investment, to now we can see him literally growing up in front of our eyes.
So look, just real quick, I wish they would have done what you said with Vision, with Adam Warlock. Yeah, because Vision was just more so like he just didn't understand the world. He was still growing in knowledge. Right. They didn't make him a slapstick joke.
Yeah, he wasn't stupid.
They didn't make him the comic relief.
James Gunn of it all. Yeah.
You know, so like, like everything you just said, if they had done that with Adam Warlock, I would have been here for all of it.
Yeah.
All of it. And that, I agreed. I also would have been looking forward to seeing where he goes after that.
Yeah.
But this, I can't care about a character that you don't even take seriously.
Yeah.
If you don't take him seriously, why should I?
I hear you.
So yeah,
and that's that Russo effect, man. Again, because even Vision, so that points to Eman's point, and I know that wasn't when they introduced him, that was Joss Whedon.
Yeah.
But like, I was just born yesterday, like that type of comedy, and we never seen Vision be like slaps, except for like WandaVision. But that wasn't like that Vision. That was Wanda's projection of Vision. But yeah, I totally agree with Eman. It's the writing. James Gunn does have this thing where I think when he sees OP characters, like and I'm just speaking from what I would imagine James Gunn's going through his head, I have to humanize them. I have to kind of show them in a light that grounds them to make people maybe relate to them, that they're not just this overpowered, God level character, that they are silly and dumb and make mistakes and can fall in love with a random creature and want to carry around like it's his pet. So I think that is a James Gunn trait, that he just doesn't always want to fully lean into. This is a powerful character that ain't about no games. James Gunn's like, let me turn it down a notch and add a little goofiness and craziness to him. So that is a James Gunn thing. And hopefully, Eman and Brandon, I got faith in him with Superman. But hopefully we don't see Superman Clark Kent on, Def Comedy Jam, such as telling jokes throughout the film.
Well, he did say it's not a comedy.
Yeah,
so
he did say that. So
that gave me a lot of hope.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, don't mess with this now.
Yeah.
Okay.
It could be light. It ain't got to be super dark or emo, but don't be having Superman cracking jokes either.
Let me just give me a quick second, guys. Quick second. I want to ask y'all. This is a little part right here is Adam Warlock versus everybody. Who would win, Adam Warlock or Vision? Vision or Adam Warlock?
Which
in
one?
a fight?
No,
from the
like MCU,
both MCU and the comics.
Oh, so I'll go. Comics is Adam Warlock, in my opinion. MCU, it would be Vision at this point, just because he's more mature and he's been more seasoned, and especially now with White Vision, I think he would be able to take him out.
Yep,
okay.
This version of Adam Warlock.
E-Man, where you at on that?
No, agreed. All of that, yeah.
Okay.
So Adam Warlock is stupid.
Adam Warlock is stupid. I got another one I'm gonna ask y'all here in a second though, but
here comes a new challenger.
Well, all right. We got a new guest backstage. Gonna bring them on right now. Pretty excited about it. Coming to the stage. It's Nagier with Big Gold Belt Media. Hello, sir. How you doing today, my brother?
What's up, gentlemen? How y'all feeling?
Pretty good, Brand. Pretty good.
Man,
nice to have you, man. Thanks for being here.
That felt like a hot tag. I'm just ran out.
All
Ready to
good.
take everybody on.
Nagier, this is Eman. Eman, this is Nagier. Elliot, this is Nagier. Nagier, this is Elliot. And so welcome to the show, sir. Welcome to the show. We've been chopping it up in the DMs for some time now. You've been on my show before with Avatar 2. We did Causeway and also Everything Everywhere All at Once. We did some Oscar coverage and had a lot of fun doing that. It was a nice collab, and I was like, man, I know we both been interested in you coming through to join us on these spoiler discussions for this MCU, man. And so I'm really glad to have you here today. Also, guys, if you love what Nagier has to say, you can follow him on social media. His handle's on the screen. His information is in the description box of this video, and he's on my channel tab as well. That's not my channel tab. This is my channel tab. And so help this brother get to his next milestone of 30,000 subscribers. But Nagier, we're in the middle of this, and I want to get your opinion on this, man. We were talking about Adam Warlock. How many times have you seen this film? Once, twice, 7 times?
Once, and I'm going to the secondary screening next week. So
okay.
Yeah.
We were all pretty disappointed with the depiction of Adam Warlock. I would say Mr. E-Man the most, and when you catch the replay, he expounded on that very, very well. Expectations, they just wasn't reached. Now, as far as it being concerned, like the physicality of the character, like this scene that we're looking at right here, this worked for me. He was strong as hell. He could beat ass. I like that. He gave it to Nebula. He gave it to Groot. He gave it to Drax. But me personally, and pretty much everybody says, we were disappointed with the comedy. I mean, this is a guy that goes toe to toe with Thanos and all of the cosmic beings of the universe, but he was kind of turned into a joke. That may have been the best part of the film for you, sir. And that's fine if it was. Everything is subjective. But if you want to let us know, man, how did you feel about Adam Warlock playing by Will Poulter? Did it work for you? Did it not? You somewhere in the middle. How'd you feel about Adam?
I was full transparency. I was absolutely like Will Poulter upon the casting. I was kind of like, I don't know, and I enjoyed him in was it Meet the Millers or We the Millers?
We Are the Millers.
Yeah. So I was kind of like, oh, I don't know. But I will say what helped me with this is that there was some dialogue within the film that had to make me kind of be more reasonable about everything you just said about who we know Adam Warlock to be. They say, oh, he came out the cocoon too early. So I was like, oh, okay. So what, is it going to be, there's going to be some flaws or discrepancy with his, what he performs and maybe even his power set and going to the film. But I think that's why I enjoyed it, because there was that sort of like prematurity in terms of like, yeah, he's powerful. We know what he can do, especially if you know the comics. But like, yeah, he gets out there and he's kind of like all over the place and kind of dipsy at times. And I'm like, okay, maybe that's because like, the full maturity isn't there. So like, of course, whenever you talk about a character like Adam Warlock being hinted at now for, a couple of years, you're like, oh, I can't wait to see him come in and clean and wash everything. But I think that what made me just kind of okay with it was just kind of like, okay, yeah, they're just saying he's just not quite there yet. This was his introduction. This is his beginning. This is his Mal origin story, shall we say. So the next appearance is definitely where I'm going to be very, very critical in terms of like, what is this MCU Adam Warlock's going to be? The one thing I will say really, 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 really helped me with him as well too was the cinematography. I was digging all of the up close and aerial shots with him. I was jokingly saying it felt like the Guardians of the Galaxy roller coaster with Adam Warlock. Like you were just right there with him, zooming around, and I was like, man, this is dope. And again, just I'm now just going to kind of sit back and see what his next appearance looked like. But for this one, I was kind of like, okay, we're not going to quite get him the OP version of him just yet. So.
I got you. Appreciate that, man. Right before you joined in, I asked Elliot and Eman who will win out of Vision and Warlock and Vision. You got any 2 cents there on who would take the cake?
Especially if it's right now, it's not even close. It's Vision,
really,
not even close.
Okay. I'm asking the rest of y'all: Adam Warlock versus Thor. Versus Adam Warlock. Thor. Okay. I don't know. I don't know. Eman, where you at on this?
Thor.
Okay, Thor across the board. Okay, next one. Adam Warlock versus Sentry.
Come on, man. Why do you hate Adam Warlock like this?
I don't know. I'm gonna say Sentry, but who you got? Who you got?
I got Sentry.
I'm about to say, we're gonna have one where Adam Warlock will win.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. How about this one right here? Adam Warlock.
Oh my God,
versus...
dog, stop. Dog, stop.
I mean, what about in the comics? Adam
it don't
Warlock
matter. Well, I mean, in the comics, like Adam Warlock is OP,
Yeah.
But in the MCU,
okay,
no,
okay. And I don't know. The last one right here, Adam Warlock versus Thanos.
Come on, man.
Man,
this man
Elliot,
gave him his first like straight up defeated streak.
Okay.
Can't even be undefeated. Just
And
straight.
one more thing before we move on, B. I will say again, going back to what Eman was asking earlier about why High Evolutionary let him out too. I guess too, just thinking about it thematically, the whole theme of this film being, embracing those flaws and imperfections in the characters. So I think that's another thing. I'm just trying to come up with reasons why would James Gunn just decide to go, because as we talked about, there's a level of like being stupid and being new to the world, being a fish out of water versus being, just kind of dumb. So I think that's where James Gunn probably leaned a little bit too heavily in that thematic theme of just like, he's not perfected. He is an infant. He is not, at his highest peak. So I think that's another reason why he probably decided to go that route. But again, there's a difference of showing the intelligence level of a character and just making him seem dumb. But that's my last point with Adam.
And that's my main thing. It's the personality, the demeanor that I didn't care for. I don't care if he's not the most powerful person or if he's not like untouchable. I don't care about that. I don't need my heroes to be invincible. I'm just saying the way you carry yourself, that I think there is value in at least embracing where the character came from. I think that I'm not saying they got to have the same path. I'm not saying they got to do the same things, but like, my goodness, like, again, like I said, you don't want Wolverine coming out here being a sucker. That's not his personality. He doesn't have to have the exact origin and the exact storyline, but that's not his character. You don't want Deadpool coming in here not being, funny. You want him to follow the personality traits. Like, that's literally the bare minimum. So yeah, he can miss me with this.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that is how we felt about Adam Warlock. Let us know if you're a fan of him in the MCU or you're a fan in the comics. If you think James Gunn knocked his depiction out of the park, or you think it was a miserable disappointment, or you're somewhere in the middle, however you feel, you're entitled to your opinion as well as ours. It's all subjective, but please let us know down in the comment section. But let's move on to, I think, one of the last main characters in this review. That is your boy, the High Evolutionary, played by Chuck Woody. And let me see, I thought I had a image for him. I do. Chuck Woody has worked with James Gunn in Peacemaker. I really did enjoy that. And I will go ahead and say that this depiction of the High Evolutionary was possibly one of my favorites out of the whole movie. I loved him. I thought he was fantastic. I don't really have any complaints at all. I'm glad that these two were able to collab together and, make another film, because I believed in him. I believed in his mission. I mean, he was evil, but he was very, very convincing. I loved everything about him. And so, Elia, I want to stick with you, man. How did you feel about Chuck Woody Awuji coming through as the High Evolutionary? Did it work for you? Did it not? How you feeling, sir?
Yeah, second rewatch made me kind of appreciate the depiction of the character a lot more than the first time. Because the first going, I was just like, motives were kind of missing. Expanding on the character's kind of power and where it stems from was kind of missing. So on a second rewatch, kind of picking, and it wasn't like fed spoon to the audience as far as getting all that information, but there were subtle nods that throughout the film you noticed his powers. He was kind of experiment on himself. You notice little things on his head. Every time we saw him, it became more and more apparent. There's a line or two where he's getting rocked out of his cage and he's like in the middle of his therapy session and something came up and he just wanted to immediately get Rocket's idea. So, and it all alludes to him inevitably coming to his powers where he can kind of define gravity and all that different stuff. So the second rewatch, okay, that's his powers weren't fully fleshed out and fully explained, but it kind of gave you enough to kind of understand, filling in the blanks. The motives of it all, I still do wish. And this is another character that, as far as comic book knowledge goes, very little. My only introduction to this character was on an episode of X-Men, and he was on Spider-Man Unlimited. And that was like my only information. I didn't really read him from the comics. So this was kind of like whatever James Gunn does with the character. It won't bother me as much as like Adam Warlock was a little bit more familiar with. So he did take some creative liberties, like the idea of him being like a mad scientist from the comics. I wish they would have maybe adapted that more in this adaptation, because to me, it almost seemed like he was an alien. He was like as Gamora says, in some corners of the galaxy, he's considered to be a god. So I'm like, okay, how long has he been around? Because he says he was one of his scientists, we've been doing this for hundreds of years. So I'm just like, where does he stem from? How long has he been around? We hear he's created multiple civilizations and different races. So it's like, this character seems to be not Thanos, but almost like a Thanos level of like, he's been around. He's a big threat. And my only issue is with all that buildup, and I love me some Guardians, but the way he was waxed at the end of the film almost negates all the stuff of him being built to be this really big, bad, looming threat that's been around since the origins, even before the Guardians. So I'm kind of torn on the handling of the character, but I won't take away anything from the performance of this actor. My only entry point to him was Peacemaker. I'm excited to see. I'm pretty sure James Gunn is going to probably recruit him again to be involved in DC. I could see him perfectly being like a Martian the Manhunter type of character if he decides to go that route. But yeah, man, the performance was good. I just wish that the interpretation and the fleshing out of the character was a little bit more developed, because if we're being honest, villains in the Guardians Rogues Gallery from the 3 films haven't been the best. And I do, it is kind of hard to probably have like a big standout villain when you have 8 other characters trying to focus on. But out of the villains, and it's by default, he probably is the best one that they faced against, even though they didn't really have that much screen time with the villain besides Rocket. So I'm kind of indifferent with him, but nothing taken away from the performance.
Right on. And just real quick, looking at his powers, superhuman intelligence, telepathy, telekinesis, precognition, and cosmic awareness, vast matter and energy manipulation, Ability, size manipulation, sentient armor grants superhuman strength, durability, and vast regeneration capabilities. To echo off of what you were saying, Elliot, he was a badass. I'm gonna talk about the ending in a second, but I love the way that the hierarchy of power in this film, because Adam Warlock was at the very beginning. He whooped Drax and he whooped Nebula, but then High Evolutionary just used his powers and threw Adam Warlock against the wall like he was just nothing. It was squeezing.
Yeah,
I was like,
he
oh
Modoked
snap!
him like Kang did to Modok.
Yes,
Sit over there.
I love that. The fact that Aisha was just bowing down to his every word. You know, he looked up on the footstool, say and opened his mouth. I loved all that. Performance was great, like you said. But Eman, where are you at, man? On Chuck Woody coming through as the High Evolutionary. Did it work for you? Did it not? How you feeling about him, sir?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not putting him in my top 5 of MCU villains or nothing, but he got the job done. I liked Chuck Woody, especially in Peacemaker. He was one of my favorite characters in the entire series. I think he brought his Broadway or stage acting skills and put them on full display here. I like the physicality that he brought to the role. I thought that was actually pretty effective. And I think it did play into his character. Now, I'll slightly disagree just a little bit with Elliot. I did get the whole mad scientist feel from him. I mean, he was literally experimenting on animals and just killing them just out of nowhere. I mean, my man made a whole Ninja Turtle and then just fried him up, you know? So I was like, oh my gosh, like this dude is really, you know, all about that pursuit of knowledge and perfection and evolution and so on. And you know, he did remind me. I was getting Kang the Conqueror vibes. Like it was almost like they kind of looked at each other's homework or whatever and just kind of copied each other there. But the only difference is as he said, he's not trying to take over the world. He's just trying to make it better, right? Which technically is not a crime, but you know, maybe kidnapping and killing folks probably is.
Right.
So I liked what he brought to the character. And yeah, I didn't come in with any expectations. I knew of High Evolutionary from the comics, but that character is so wild, so obscure. I mean, most of those power sets that you listed, we ain't see those things. Right. He ain't had no regeneration. He ain't had no armor. He ain't had no telekinesis or nothing like that. He just had a little machine that controlled the gravity or whatever. And I mean, okay, that's cool or whatnot. But again, I also was not vastly interested in his background. I thought that what they gave us was enough because I didn't think he was that deep. He was kind of a one-dimensionally written character. He's that scientist that goes too far. And yes, he does have that God complex. And, you know, of course, coming from my religious background and studies, like I was very fascinated with that one line where, you know, even the other aliens was like, oh my God, oh God. And I was like, wait, y'all aliens believe in God? Like, oh, that's interesting to me. Are y'all talking about the one above all? Like what's going on? Like, I was kind of curious about that. But then when he finally snapped, was like, yo, there is no God. And that's why I stepped in.
I love that line.
You know what I'm saying? And like that to me is perfectly depicting the far extreme of scientism, right? Like the people that believe that science is the only way to get an answer of anything. You become a naturalist. You become someone who only believes in the material world. And I thought that worked perfectly for his character. And I thought he captured that. I thought he nailed all of that. But yeah, I mean, overall, he was cool. I was a little disappointed when he was fighting Rocket. I was like, them little raccoon scratches took you out. Like,
he was mad, man. He was.
Don't play with raccoons, man.
Don't get
not play with raccoons.
Listen, I'm in the Midwest. We got raccoons every day, every night. Okay, I understand.
Steroids.
They are not to be played with. But you telling me you can't push it away from your face? You're just gonna let it sit there and just tear your face up. That's it. So I'm just saying I was kind of sitting there like, bro, if you don't push that thing off your face, I know he's gonna scratch you up real bad, but he gonna KO you like that. So anyway,
I'm off guard. I'm slipping.
I was overall, he's fine. He's not the greatest villain. He's not the worst villain. But yeah, performance-wise, my man did he did a good job.
Already. I think the reason why when we got his mask taken off at the end, I think I was that damage done from Rocket or
Yeah.
you know just
So this is what you did to me. Yeah.
longevity. He was a very ugly looking person there.
Yeah.
But Nagier, coming to you, sir, man, how did you feel about the High Evolutionary? Did he work for you? Did he not? And also the performance from Chuck Woody, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly.
I think it's pronounced Scooty Woogie. I think is how you pronounce his whole name.
You would know more than me, sir. You would know more than me. But how you feeling, man? How you feeling?
I love how Eman said that he didn't commit no crimes. Peter got a lot to say about that. They knocking on his door right now. They probably on James Gunn's door. Like, I can't believe how y'all had this animal cruelty whole elaborate scene. That shit hurt, man. Watching that, man. I was like, this ain't right. You all have really knocked out a lot of my comments. The only thing I really want to add is my first introduction to him was in one of my favorite shows in Designated Survivor. So I was excited to see this casting, but I was not expecting. I went to San Diego Comic-Con last year. I wasn't expecting for him to have this grand interest that they gave him. And y'all know how it is in the Marvel panels in Hall H. That thing is chaotic in there. And when he came through, I mean, he shut it down. It was a lot like his performance on the screen, where when he was talking, everybody was listening. And at that moment, I said, I know he's going to bring something very special to the screen, whether you like the character or not. I think the performance alone, much like Elliot said, is definitely worth talking about. And again, I think if you're indifferent about how they portrayed this character, I think he made this character his own, and I'm absolutely cool with that as well. But as far as like the character, I mean, again, y'all knocked a lot of the points here, but I definitely was feeling the mad scientist thing. And as you said, Eman, when it came down to him experimenting on the animals to no end, I was like, yeah, this dude is nuts. And I also do love that like we got a villain that wasn't just all about power and taking over the world, but just like, hey man, like things kind of crazy out here. Let me see if I can do something to change it. And one way or another, he comes from the Church of Scientology at this rate, and that's a scary thing in his own. So I'm like, you know what, this dude's got to go, man. Like, what are you trying to aim for? Sounds heroic in a sense, but no, this is problematic. And every single time you get somebody that is very sure of what he's doing, so righteous in his actions, it's typically questionable to society. And I think that's kind of how you look at this character, along with some power set and whatnot. But I just enjoyed the performance, and I was just like, okay, cool. I wasn't expecting much in terms of like this character existing outside of Guardians. So I think he filled his role into much like you said, this was truly not beyond this being Rocket's redemption story, which I think he paid towards to counter that very well. This was truly about a story about imperfections and seeing the good in the imperfections. So I think the character and the ideology behind the character worked well.
Lovely. Did you like Counter Earth and what he was doing with all that?
Counter Earth is weird, but also I was sitting there like a nerd, like, wonder what their taxes and stuff is like there. I'm just thinking of all this random stuff.
They were selling meth on the corner, so
that moved me.
Yeah,
pushing P was out there, man. Like,
yo, I was actually really surprised that they just destroyed that whole world.
Yeah,
man,
I was like, all of them,
control, all delete,
like all of them just gone.
Yeah, control,
so unnecessary.
Yo, golly.
How'd y'all feel about the F-bomb? Get in the fucking car.
I'm sorry, man. I was dying. I was dying. Even that caught me. I didn't hear about the article prior to seeing the film. That caught me off guard. So I was laughing my ass off.
It was dumb. They didn't even need it. They could have just saved that for Deadpool. It would have been a much better historic moment for the MCU. You wasted it on Peter Quill?
No,
on this in a scene that doesn't even matter.
Yeah. This is it was funny, but you can throw this into the bin of jokes that lasted just a little bit too long. Because while they were funny, it stopped the progress of the story. I kind of felt like, okay, let's just stop and joke for 2 minutes. But that's just me. That's just me. I will say, when we started this, I was comparing the first one, Volume 3 to Volume 1, Volume 1 to Volume 3. One of the things that made Volume 1 so great was the soundtrack, man. That was a head banger. I don't necessarily agree with Part 2. It wasn't sorry. It just wasn't as good. But part 3 had my head banging too a little bit, man. Am I tripping him? Was it Earth, Wind, and Fire, or was some group
That was
they
Earth,
had?
Wind, and Fire.
Yeah, I was like, okay. I really did like it. And Eman, I know you have some commentary towards it as well, man. But James Gunn probably has the best soundtrack out the whole MCU. But how did you feel about it in Volume 3, the soundtrack?
Yeah, so I totally agree with you. The Volume 1 was probably the best in terms of the sound selection, the soundtrack, the song selection, the placement, and all of that. But for me, Volume 3 did not work. It was just off all the way for me. Yes, sorry, not sorry. It was not my personal playlist, and I think that's part of the issue. When you look at Volume 1, there were some songs, for example, that some people might not have ever heard, right? Like my teenage daughter had never heard of the first song, that Peter Quill was listening to. But all of a sudden, because of the placement, because of how it was gelled into the scene, I'm seeing her playing this song like all in her room and everything, right? So you don't have to be a fan of the songs to actually know that the soundtrack works or not. And one of the issues I had was just like, a lot of the songs just didn't feel like they fit. I love Earth, Wind, and Fire. The Reasons. I love that song. It's in my playlist. It's on my on my players and everything. But when they played it during the scene, I was like, why? Like, this don't match. Like, what are we doing? What are the reasons? Like, I'm trying to think of the lyrics. Like, dude, are the lyrics supposed to make sense to this? But like, it don't make sense. And the only way I could compare it is kind of like when you go into the gym, you trying to get hype, you trying to get yourself pumped up, to go lift or whatever, and then all of a sudden a slow jam R&B song comes on. Yes, I like that song, but it doesn't fit what I'm trying to do. So tonally, I don't think they always matched or enhanced some of the scenes that were going on, kind of like the way that they did in Volume 1. Volume 1, man, if it was an action scene, boom, you had some good rock and roll or some high pitch, high tempo stuff. But in this one, it just felt like James Gunn was like, man, just hit play. I like this song. Just play, And I would also say that, again, even if you're not a fan of the music, it still shouldn't interrupt or distract the scene. Like, if you don't listen to opera music, you can still understand that when some operatic theme plays and a hero walks through the door, you're like, ooh, I get this sense of grandeur. Oh, man, I see that this is a big deal. Like, you can still understand the importance with it. And I just didn't get that with this. So I understand that it might work for other people, but I'm sitting here thinking, like, on a basic level, whether I like these songs or not, I still didn't feel like they enhanced the scenes or made them better in any way. So it was a miss for me.
Damn, I got you. I got you. You make a point. It may not have matched. When they did play Reasons, but I was still jamming though.
I was singing along. I was singing along, but when I'm thinking about how does this help the scene, I'm like, this don't match.
I got you, man. How'd you feel about the soundtrack, man? It worked for you, it didn't work for you?
It's a lot of intelligence on this panel right now. I gotta, when I watch it the second time, I'm gonna take that into consideration. But for the soundtrack alone, it's an absolute must buy, add to cart, vinyl purchase, because from top to bottom, every song I was like, yes, absolutely. But on that note, about how does it work for every scene, certainly some scenes did work. But I think there was other scenes that I kind of maybe disengaged from what I was watching and engaged within the music, and I'm cool with that at times. It's you ever see a really good film with a bad score? It's almost the same way, except this one rides more heavily on the soundtrack instead of just the score aspect of it. So I really want to go back and take a look at it from Eman's perspective and see how I felt about like the continuity with things.
Already, Elliot, how you feeling about it? How are you feeling about it?
I was a fan of the soundtrack, man, and I think the way I was, because I get to see that a second time, I just always envisioned it, because I do agree with Eman. The soundtrack of Volume 1 is perfect, like literally not just from a score perspective, but the scenes, it fit perfectly within the scenes. But the way I've always interpreted it as is, we obviously know from Volume, 2, Peter got the Zoom player, but he had that that other device much longer than he had his zoom. So I always just imagine, like, thematically speaking, that it might have felt a little maybe disoriented because Peter's still kind of learning that music from that particular decade because he missed out on it from obviously being in space. So I just always interpret like we're just kind of James Gunn playing into he's trying to find his groove like he did in volume 1. He's still kind of, you know, on that path of finding that perfect playlist up to this point. But as far as just like from my taste in music, I really did enjoy the variety. You know, you start off with a Radiohead, you mentioned Earth, Wind, and Fire. We got the Beastie Boys and all the different stuff in between. So I do think it just more of a story beat kind of plays into Peter just still kind of getting used to the playlist.
Let me just say that Beastie Boys, that was a perfect example of the song matching the scene.
Yep.
That scene, like you got the action, you got them going, it's go time. That worked. The Earth, Wind, and Fire, not so much. Again, I love the song. I just didn't think it worked. But the Beastie Boys, that was a very good example of when everything hit on all cylinders.
Yeah.
Right on. Y'all let us know.
Oh, and you know, one more thing too, while I'm thinking about it, just not to cut you off, Brandon. Another thing is I think it might be a little disoriented for Eman too, is we were hearing it from the different Guardians perspective, because sometimes the different Guardians had the playlist, and like Rocket had his, you know, his song that he liked. Gamora accidentally turned on something that just randomly played. So I think too, it plays into like the characters, it might have fit like their taste in music throughout the film, because they all had a moment where they would change the song. So this is something I thought about.
We y'all let us know how you felt about the soundtrack. We're coming to the end, just a couple of topics left. I spoke earlier about when they was at the space alien station, Ogle Corp, how it really didn't work for me. The whole mission there was on, it was just too easy with Drax, you know, slicing through everybody. But the action did, I didn't mean to scream. The action did work for me towards the end of the film. I really enjoyed the destruction of Counter Earth. I mean, it was sad, but it was still cool. Groot and Peter Quill blasting the hell out of all of the High Evolutionary's henchmen. Also, at the very end of the film, in the third act, all of the Guardians together, when they're like, oh, we got to go rescue them, and they came out on those little space creatures, and they wrecked shop in their corridor, that hallway, seeing Nebula getting decked and her head, her neck broken, but she's still able to. You know, I loved all that. That scene was badass. You know, one of the main what the film focused on, Rocket, showing him gliding in the air, shooting his gun. That was badass. They didn't put any jokes in it to mess it up, ruin the tension. No, it was serious. Yeah. I love the action. I love except for the Ogle Corp scene. I love the action in this. I love the effects. I love the fighting. He did a great job across the board. Also, the story and my only nitpick was how Kraglin pulled up in nowhere when they went through the little jump point. You know, I'm just thinking, like, why was it so hard for the High Evolutionary to fly away? I mean, that was a big ass ship he got, so maybe it's not that, but that's just a little nitpick. Y'all can comment on that. But for the most part, I love the plot, I love the story, and I love the action. Eman, how did you feel about all that, man? Did it work for you? Did it not work for you? Action? How you feeling, sir?
Oh yeah, I mean, the action was on point. I love that part of the movie for sure. Like we talked about earlier with Adam Warlock coming through, that fight scene in the beginning, that's a good way to get my attention and to hold it, right? So we in there with the fights and the battles. I was with it. The whole thing with Peter Quill and Groot when they were doing the shootouts, I was like, all y'all needed was a couple white doves, and this would have been a John Woo situation all day. And I was here for it. That was it. And then, of course, the hallway scene. I mean, at this point, shout out to the Godfather at this point, Daredevil. Everybody got to have a hallway scene. But you know what? They did this one very, very well. And like you said, I'm so glad that they didn't stop and bother to, you know, add some jokes or levity to it. Like, look, we're fighting, you know, stuff is going down. Let's just get down to business with it. And I thought the cinematography was fantastic. The camera angles, following, going upside down, around, and all of that stuff, that just enhanced that whole scene right there. And I would say, arguably, this could be that scene anyway. This could be one of the best action sequences in the MCU to date. I'm not going to say it is the best, but one of the best, because it's definitely the most memorable. To me, it's one of the most memorable and best ones in the Guardians franchise. So outside of, like, you know, some other Marvel films, this one is going to be something that people are going to remember.
Already, love it.
Hold
How
on,
you feeling?
I got. Let me get in there real quick because I'm doubling down on that statement there. I'm going to say, because I said this in my review, and I still haven't been able to confirm it, but I know you all will be able to help me out. If that's indeed a one shot, that's the greatest one shot action sequence of all time.
Oh,
not even close. The way and James Gunn loves the team ups. I love the team ups. I'm always here for it. But that sequence in that hallway was definitely, to me, I think it's definitely James Gunn with a statement of saying, I does this. And I'm going to show you I'm the GOAT at this. And by all means, you talk about the panning shots and you getting up and close and personal with it. I mean, it took everything I loved about what they did with Adam Warlock in terms of him flying around earlier, and then actually did some action with it with every character. I'm like, man, this is nuts. Literally, the second time I want to watch it is just to really study this scene. But by all means, I think if that's too much of a hot take to say it's the greatest action sequence and scene of all time, is damn sure the one in the MCU. And I'll stand on that one.
I love it. Elliot.
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, hey, the raid's still up there for me. They got a one shot.
I
won't say
that.
I thought you were gonna come with Atomic Blonde with that statement. I was like, you're gonna say Atomic Blonde.
Hey, I'll go even recent with John Wick 4 with the overshot of him going through. So I mean, there's definitely some great one takes for sure. I mean, 1917 is an entire one take film. But no, as far as MCU to Nigeria's point, yeah, it's definitely. And this is a James Gunn thing that I really love. He always has these moments, like Guardians 1 had it, Guardians 2, even Suicide Squad had it with Harley Quinn breaking out of prison, stuff like that. So he always likes to have these type of moments. But I think what hits home for me is this has been, 10 years of these characters just working together, the chemistry, the choreography. They know their strength and weaknesses. We see Peter with his, which, by the way, man, people forget, Peter was able. I saw a clip online. I totally forgot about that. How he was able to not take it out, but how he was able to kind of get one over on Iron Man and Spider-Man. So it shows Peter is very capable even without his celestial powers. So I love that. And as you mentioned, B, Rocket's my guy. That was a comic book panel when him in the air, slow motion shooting. That's straight out of the comic. So yes, that is a highlight scene. Definitely top 5 of the MCU. Probably my favorite scene of any Guardians film, bar none. So that is definitely a standout. And just action in general was really well done. If you've been following James Gunn career since Slither and Super 8 to obviously Guardians 1, 2, 3, and Suicide Squad. Again, I'm a DC fan. This is going to be more and more excited to see Superman in action and just seeing his sensibilities as an action director. He's come a long way, man. He's definitely sharpened his skills and his toolbox. He can handle those action scenes, and this film showed it.
Hell yeah, it did. And it may have been you, Eman, that said it. I can't remember. You or Eman or Elliot about High Evolutionary getting tagged at the end. It worked for me because he did not have a chance to swing back. I mean, they came in hitting him from every direction, like.
He got jumped, bro. He literally got jumped.
He got.
That's not what I was talking about. That's not what I was talking about. I was talking about the first time when it was just him and Rocket in the flashback.
Okay.
That part to me was like, you couldn't push him off your face. You just let him maul you. Now in the end, he got jumped. Okay, so he got jumped and he got marked, and there was nothing he could do. The first time I was like, bro, push the animal off your face, like defend yourself. Like
I got you. I got you. It worked. It was nice. Man, I was about to say it slipped my mind about the High Evolutionary. Okay. If it comes back to me, I'll say it then.
But the choreography, the coordination,
it was nice. My only other little nitpick is when they rescued all the children, and then Rocket, when they say, "Hey, where's Rocket?" And he went there to get the animals. I was like, "Rocket, if you don't hurry your ass up and grab and run," he sat there a minute and a half just looking at him like
the trauma, man.
PTSD, man. He froze.
He's seen his homies in the pen, man. It was hard, man.
That was one of y'all.
Yeah, he should have been. He didn't want to go back.
That was nice. I remember what I was going to say. Rocket decided not to kill him. Is he dead? Did he blow up with the ship?
See a body. Hey, I'm in that class. If I don't see a body, I don't know. But
I don't care. If he come back, so what? Like,
I doubt he will, though. But yeah,
I got you. Well, guys, we're at the end, and Quill makes a speech. He listened to Mantis's words and decides to go back to Earth to visit his grandpa. And Nebula, and Drax are still together. Gamora goes with the Ravagers. Mantis goes on her own self-discovery. And then Groot Rocket joins with Kraglin, Cosmo, and the rest of the another child that got some powers, and the extra dog. And how y'all, I mean, did the ending work for y'all? And you can talk about that, but also just want to kind of wrap this thing up and talk about, it's not that big a deal, but we're still gonna talk about the mid post credit scenes. And so Nagier, I want to come to you first this time, man. How did you feel about the conclusion of the film, with them wrapping up everything, them going their separate ways, and then also the mid credit scene and the post credit scene? How did that work for you, if it did or didn't, sir?
I guess one, I'm a huge Drax and I love Batista. So first off, I was like, all right, what's going to happen here? I hope the movie calls his bluff about him saying he's done with the character, but him going off to be and have his daddy do this, I'm like, oh, okay, he loves the kids, I love the kids, so cool. But I guess it was bittersweet for me, man. Again, I've said this so many times. Anybody who's watched it, I just said that, like, think back. These were a bunch of characters that no one knew about unless you were heavy in the comics. And over the years, we have grew to not only make them household names, but love these characters, love these actors, and these characters belong to them. And that's that's not a thing that we should kind of make a norm here, but it does feel like that. Like Drax will always be Batista, Palm would always be Mantis. It's just what they've done with these characters. We just loved and appreciated over the years. And I think these sort of send-offs and these new journeys and ventures that they're going on, I felt like, honestly, I was like, man, I feel like a piece of me is going with them too. Like I am absolutely curious to see what Mantis's journey is going to be like. Will we get that? I don't know. Will they give us another Disney Plus special? Maybe. I don't know, but it's not something I'm pretty confident in saying. But I guess on a positive note, to kind of see this new shaped Guardians of the Galaxy team, I'm optimistic. And I think we're back at square zero once again. A group of characters that maybe you know about, maybe you don't. And we're going to see if they're able to capture our hearts the way that the original group did. So I'm definitely optimistic. But again, it was like a bittersweet moment of like, dang, man, this has been a journey. Like, but we'll see what next. And that's just kind of where I was thinking at. And then to go back to the statement earlier with Eman, I'm looking dead at Adam Warlock right in his eyes. Now it's time for you to go off, my man. Some time has passed. So I don't want to see you out here being a dipsy blonde, just walking around like you don't know what you're doing here. And then you got little kid here. I can't think of the name. My friend actually knew what that character's name was, but that character looks pretty competent and able right now. So if that's what's happening with that, then what you up to? And we need to see, and I think another thing was kind of telling when everybody was kind of like joining in sort of solidarity and nowhere. Adam is kind of looking like, do I fit in? Do I not fit in? Obviously, he got recruited. Now he's part of this new Guardians team. What did that journey of acceptance look like for him, and how has that changed his mental going forward? So, I'm very curiously optimistic, but definitely a bittersweet moment to kind of see this all come to an end.
Right on. I love the ending myself. Since you brought up, I forgot Adam Warlock is there too. It was funny when Peter Quill's life was saved and everybody was hugging and he didn't know what to do. He was like, I laughed. That worked for me. But Elliot, man, also, Nagier, did the post-credit scene make sense to you, talking about the neighbor mowing the lawn? Was that just a joke, or was it supposed to mean something? I mean, you don't have to comment if you don't want to, but I or anybody else can. I was kind of lost there. But it worked for me. I agree with you. I am highly optimistic about the new Guardians team too that we saw in the middle credit scene. I like that whole thing. That was I was like, hey, when we heard the news that this was the end of the Guardians as we know it, I was disappointed. But after seeing that mid-credit scene, I was like, okay, I can rock with this. If they want to do a Guardians 4 and have this team, I'm here for it. We know that the other characters are going to be in the MCU in some way, shape, or form. But I was optimistic about it. But Elliot, how are you feeling about the whole conclusion, the wrap up, mid and post credit scene, sir?
Oh wait, can I jump in there one thing too? And you all can just respond to it. But like, what was your thoughts about them saying that Peter Quill will return instead
Well,
of it being Guardians or whatever, but just specifically Peter. What was your thoughts about that?
They have to. That's their star player. That's the franchise player for Guardians. You know, I mean, I'll comment on that a little later, but you're not gonna just let Chris Pratt walk away. Like, you're gonna bring the money back. So, but I'll talk about that later. Elliot, go ahead.
Yeah, no, the ending was perfect to me. It came full circle because I think of the first Guardians, which is top tier, like top 5 for me in my personal rankings. You know, the first time when you look at that film, when they actually, because that whole film they were not together, but that was when they were on Nowhere fighting Ronan for the first time before the conclusion of the dance off. That was the first time they worked together as a team. So to see them back at Nowhere as this family now and saying their goodbyes really hit me emotional. And like I said, with Drax, man, with him getting emotional, saying goodbye to his little sister, essentially, with Mantis got to me, and the whole Dog Days Were Over song playing, it all came full circle. And I was emotionally wrecked, man, because I love these characters, man. And seeing them saying goodbye it hit me in the feels. So I really enjoyed that. I will say, when Peter fake death, where was my man's mask that he's been rocking this whole franchise when he was in space? I was like, that was a cool visual of him holding pushing himself back and getting caught in gravity. But I'm like, where is damn mask to prevent you from dying in space? But besides that, the mid-credit scene is interesting because, again, going back to James Gunn when he was fired for that time being, there was a short list of directors that they were going to replace him with, and I'm very curious to know if they call them back to say, hey, we want to do another Guardians 4, especially I think this film will do pretty good financially. So I'm very curious to see on what they do with them, but I love Rocket, so I'm glad that he's officially the captain. He's always been the captain this whole time. Peter knew that, but now it's officially official. Kraglin, we'll see, how he fits into the group, and Cosmo's space dog. Seeing Alpha Groot was pretty cool. Omega powers, which is going to be cool moving forward if we see that. And who else? Adam Warlock, like you said, I definitely want to see more from him moving forward. And then that character, the first time I saw it, I just thought it was just, they just randomly, they're going to train these kids and maybe see who fits into the group. But more I think about it, the second view, I'm like, I got to know who this character is, because I don't think they just threw this character is. So to Nigier's point, when I looked it up, because I didn't know who it was, she goes by the name of Phyla. And Phyla in the comics is actually Marvel's daughter. So she has, I don't know if they'll do this because they kind of obviously do their own thing with the movies, but she's a Kree. So, and she also, from what I understand, in the comics, she goes by this code name of Quasar or Quasgar, who Nova's had that name. And it's essentially, when you have that name, you have the control of these quantum bands, which is, if you go back to that scene, she was kind of levitating and her hands were glowing, hence the quantum bands, which makes you think quantum bands, Kree, she might have some connections to Captain Marvel and all that stuff that they got going on, Miss Marvel, and obviously the Bengals. So that character could mean something moving forward. And we always know Marvel likes to throw in little Easter eggs and set things up for future. So again, on the first view, I'm like, this is just a random kid in the mix, but the kid might grow up to be something or someone very important to this group, but as well as the MCU. So really interested to see what they do there. And then the post-credit scene, I just took it as a joke. It did tie into the special because when he was reading the paper, it said Kevin Bacon was kidnapped by aliens. I don't know if the neighbor has any significance. Like, he's watching me mow the lawn. Like, I don't know if we'll see the neighbors, like, I don't know, Ralph Boner or something, like he's in Westview, or I don't know if they'll tie it into that, like their neighbors are someone important to the MCU or tied to Agatha's Covenant of Chaos, and Peter happens to be the next door neighbor or something. But I am interested to see, going to the Star-Lord aspect of it all, on like, he's on Earth now, so he can mingle with on Earth heroes. I would love to see a Peter Quill and a Scott Lang thief off, them, robbing something, being involved with the Avengers on the Earth level, and them teaming up to rob something from Kang or something on Earth, or find an artifact on Earth. I don't know if, and speaking of Peter Quill met Peter Parker in Infinity War. He saw his face, and I don't know if that Doctor Strange spell expands to people in space more so than people on Earth. So maybe Peter, I would say maybe Peter Quill might recognize Spider-Man, but I would love to see him interact there. So I mean, the possibilities are endless, and just going to a galactical side of it, Nick Fury, if he's working with Sword, who would be a better recruitment than Peter Quill, a Guardians of the Galaxy who knows the galaxy? So, I mean, there's so many endless possibilities that they can do with Star-Lord now, and seeing him mix with other people. So I'm here for it, man. And Chris Pratt, everyone's thinking that he's going to be with DC, potentially with James Gunn recruiting people. I think he's going to be with Marvel for quite a few more years. So it'll be really, really interesting to see what they do with not only Peter, but also this new iteration of the Guardians.
Elliot's on to something because listen, this Spider-Man, you know, the Spider-Man deal is always like Spider-Man and an appearance from one Avenger. I think Peter Quill makes the perfect person for this fourth film.
They will have a good man.
By everything you said, I'm buying that. Also, I just want to say when Groot said "I love you," I was like,
I love you,
family. I wanted them to say family too.
Didn't I tell you that was all Vin Diesel? See, before you got on here, I said Vin Diesel did this. Yeah, he's responsible.
One of the things before I
love
come to
you,
Eman,
family.
one of the things I forgot to mention I really did like was when Rocket was about to die, when Peter was trying to save his life and he was transitioning over to the afterlife and the otter came. It was like,
Yeah,
you were welcome here, but not yet. Beautiful scene. Just had to throw it out there.
no, that
Great.
was good.
But Eman, how did you feel about the ending, the wrap up, the mid and post credit scenes? Sir?
Yeah, I'll throw one other thing in there. I was kind of shocked and intrigued with the Ravengers. They had a whole sorcerer on their team, opening up the Doctor Strange portals. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Anyway, that was just a little something that I thought was kind of dope.
Thank you. Thank you.
As for the ending, I mean, like, look, like I said before, I thought that each character got a really good send-off, you know, for their individual journeys and paths. I still feel like Mantis was a little bit, you know, thrown in. It didn't feel as fully fleshed out compared to everyone else. I definitely connected with Drax with the dad moment, of course. You know, Nebula, I felt like they just don't have very much for her, you know, at this point. She's kind of already reached her apex, I think, in terms of development, not being the hard, bitter, cold assassin for Thanos. So now, like, hey, you gonna be the den mom, you know, on nowhere now, and Drax is gonna be there right there with you. So those are fine, you know. When it comes to Peter, that's why I was saying, like, you know, with the end credit scene saying Star-Lord will return, of course he will, you know, like, that's your money. And this kind of goes into you know, and I guess I'll slightly disagree. I'm not that interested on their individual journeys because they're not that interesting to me. Because the thing is, Nagier, you're totally right. When we first started, nobody cared about them. Nobody even comic fans wasn't checking for Guardians of the Galaxy, right? But the thing is, we started to love them, and they started to go from C-list characters to, I would say, maybe B-list, but they did that as a team, not individually. So now that we're starting all over, they're back to C, if not, I would say, D-list at this point. Because Rocket, a stupid Adam Warlock, Groot, some chick that we don't even know their name, a dog, and Little Gun. Like, I'm not rushing to the theaters for that. You know, they're going to. I'm not saying it's going to be a flop. I'm just saying the current makeup that you have, and by the way, you also don't have a leading starring actor or face to really get people into the door.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing that as like a blockbuster. So again, yes, they're starting at ground zero, but they're going to have a lot of legwork to do to get this new roster to the point where we even compare them to the first team. You know, I'm willing to give them a shot, but I'm just saying right now, based off of what we know and what we've seen, y'all could go straight to streaming at this point with that roster, straight to streaming. I definitely don't need anyone else's individual journeys, to be honest, and I'm not trying to be mean. I don't care what happens with Mantis. I really don't. For what? Y'all barely gave me a full story with her in the first place. I don't have enough level of attachment to her to devote even a Disney Plus special. Y'all gonna have to sprinkle that in somewhere else. But Peter Quill, on the other hand, my goodness, that has so much meat on the bones. There's so much stuff. Just a man out of time, right? Like, we can have this guy come into Earth and explore stuff to see how, you know, he reconciles with Earth's technology versus all the alien technology, you know, the cultural differences that he's learned. Like, all of these things are fascinating to me with Peter Quill's character, because again, this is something that we've had a deeper level of investment. And I would say that because of the fact that like we grew with the team, and I think the team has been more of the draw. Peter Quill over time has elevated to probably getting close to A-list, moving from B-list to A-list character in the MCU. I mean, sometimes for infamous reasons, you know, punching Thanos and stuff like that, but people know him, right? People recognize him. So if you were to say like, yo, we got a movie with just Peter, and let's go with Elliot's idea, he tag teams with Ant-Man, now you have my attention. Now I'm intrigued because I want to see how these interactions work, because it worked very well in Infinity War, you know, with him primarily. So for the ending, I thought it was perfect for the individual characters. The mid-credit scene, I'll say that like I was a little iffy about it. I was like, okay, that's your new roster. I don't really care about y'all, but wait a minute. Y'all just went on a whole crusade to free up all these animals, and now y'all finna go kill the Lion King animals? Like, what y'all?
Well, yeah, because they
don't care about Earth animals.
They evil now. What do they do?
They trying to kill the people that they killing.
They look like just animals stampeding to me. I didn't see them kill nobody. What happened?
They said there was like these people on here to protect us
and defend them.
I mean, defend themselves.
Like
that's what we're here for.
It sounds like they need to move.
They do it on their own.
If you got your little country, your village right next to a herd of buffalo, and the buffalo is stampeding or something,
they're on their Mandalorian stuff where they can live next to a lake with a giant dam.
Right, you know, but
it's like at your own risk.
Either way, I just thought it was kind of odd that now they about to go kill these other animals. Because here's the thing, it'd be different if they portrayed these aliens kind of like they did in Thor: Love and Thunder, right? Like the aliens that were attacking that other crew, you could tell, Raiders. Okay, they're creepy, they're slimy, they're bad guys. We get that. They just look like a whole bunch of wild animals. So to me, it sent conflicting messages, but whatever.
You saw the Lion King. You saw
the last one with Peter Quill and his grandpa. Yeah, I got a laugh out of the newspaper. Yeah. But I was wondering, like, okay, because we saw the black lady open up the door. I was like, oh, who is her son? Like, who is that? Blue Marvel? Like, who are we talking about here? Like, what's happening? You know, but that went nowhere. So I guess it was just a nothing burger. And I'm not gonna put too much hopes on that. So otherwise, everything wrapped up the way it did. I will say ultimately though, because of the way that it wrapped up and because of the way the emotions and tones of this movie were, I have I wouldn't say zero. I have little interest to revisit this movie because I've gotten everything you needed. I got my closure. I got my emotional feels out. It's kind of like Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Like, I don't want to keep going back to that for what? Like, you said what you had to do. You know, you said what you said. You did what you did. You got the closure. Move on. So, you know, they did the job, but that's all.
Right on. Hey. My heart is still broken from Wakanda Forever. I haven't watched it on Disney Plus once or yet. Somebody's about to say something.
Yeah, just a quick question. I just want to know what you all thought about the moment I guess we've been waiting for all of these families for Rocket to really embrace who he is as Rocket Raccoon.
I liked it. It worked for me.
Yeah, it was him claiming who he is. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, he is a raccoon.
Good for him.
Now again, I was just wondering at one point, was this just like a glitch in my knowledge of the comics? Like, he is a raccoon, right? This man, he ain't never ever gonna say he's a raccoon. But when he said, I was like, okay, they didn't force it. I actually like how they delivered this, and it meant something when he said it, so it was cool.
Right on.
One of my favorite parts in the movie was actually him getting his name in the first place. Like, I just thought that was really cool in itself. And then, you know, to your point about like him finding out that he actually was a raccoon and then embracing that I'm Rocket Raccoon. I was like, okay, that's cool. So yeah, I give him credit for that.
Now, thank y'all. And just last topic before we head out of here, and I'm going to start with Eman, especially with his commentary that we had when we did our spoiler review for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I think at the time we did that, it was still kind of fresh that Bob Chapek was no longer the CEO of Disney. Iger was back. I think that news was maybe a few weeks or a month old at the time. And I posed the question, the future of the MCU after Ant-Man, but now the future of the MCU after Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Eman, I remember asking you, and you said that you didn't think things were going to pick up for another 2 years. You said, the Fantastic Four, and that's not the right screen. February of 2025, and I'm like, man. So after, but before we get into that, I think just give me a thumbs up or thumbs down if you can agree or disagree. I think it's safe to say universally between us four that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is better than Ant-Man 3. Can we agree there? Okay. All right.
I had more thumbs I would give him.
Okay. So with that being said, now that you've seen Guardians Volume 3, Eman, do you still feel the same that you did when we was talking about Ant-Man, or are you more positive, more optimistic about the future of the MCU? Because the next thing that we have is the Disney Plus show is a Secret Invasion, and we got the trailer for that. And then in November we have the Marvels. And so again, sir, how are you feeling about this, man? You feeling still kind of icky? Feeling more optimistic? What do you think is next?
I still think that this is going to be if I'm getting a gauge, I don't think that this pushes the needle, but I don't think it hurts the MCU either. I think, like I said, I think that because of the nature of this film, Volume 3, it's very self-contained. Its main objective is to close out the chapter for these Guardians. Nothing about this movie, except for maybe the new roster that they're going to introduce, is going to push the MCU forward. So I don't see it pushing the needle for people that are like, I need to get excited about the MCU or whatever. Like, I mean, if that roster, which I think is actually more of a downgrade than an upgrade, if that roster excites you, okay, cool. But overall, I don't think it's going to be like, oh man, I can't wait. The MCU is back, baby. Like, I'm not saying that. And I am still worried about the Marvels. Matter of fact, you can go to my video and I give you 4 reasons why I think the Marvels is going to underperform. And it's definitely not going to hit that $1 billion mark that Captain Marvel did. But yes, a lot of the stuff, in my opinion, is a byproduct of the stuff that was going on during the Chapek era when Phase 4 was starting off. And I think that had to do with a lot of shift in philosophy by doing more quantity than having good quality control. And we did notice the moment Bob Iger came back, what did he say? We got to slow down. We got to slow down. We got to take our time. Maybe everybody doesn't need a sequel. Maybe every character doesn't need a follow-up. Ant-Man, and that's true. They have to get back to telling actual stories and not just chucking out products that have shoddy visual effects, questionable story angles, changes in shifts mid-franchise. A lot of these things were, I think, contributing to all of the midness that's been happening in Phase 4. And yeah, like for me, I'm thinking to myself, like, everything that came out during the Chapek era or that was in production during the Chapek era is going to suffer. And I do think the Marvels is going to be part of that. So the tipping point is probably going to be Cap 4. I do have some concerns with that, but I think it has some potential, even though it's looking more like a Hulk movie than it is a Captain America movie. But I think Deadpool is going to be a good sign of, okay, now we getting back on track. Fantastic Four, now we getting back on track. And Blade, everything else after that, I think is really going to show us that, okay, Marvel, you had a moment, you had a slip up. We could blame it on the pandemic, but now y'all back. Okay, so yeah, I need to wait about a year or so before we get out of the averageness that we've been experiencing.
Averageness. I got you. Appreciate it, man. Elliot, coming to you next, sir. After seeing Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, how are you feeling about the future of the MCU? We got the Marvels coming next, and then the Secret Invasion, then the Marvels, and just throw any constructive criticism out there for the filmmakers, producers, executives as well.
Yeah, man, I still think, I feel like history is just repeating itself in regards to, Phase 1 and 2. There's some bangers in there. And I could say the same thing about Phase 4, Shang-Chi, WandaVision, Loki for me, and various projects like that, Spider-Man No Way Home. But then when you transition into Phase 2, which this is the Phase 2 of, Phase 5 now, you got your Iron Man 2s, you got your or Iron Man 3s, you got your Thor 2s and stuff that was kind of on a weak spot. But then as we kind of pivot into the back half of phase 2, we got some more projects. And, you know, I'm not saying I want to wait to phase 6 and things get to really get picking up again, but we know how phase 3 was for the MCU with hit after hit after hit. So I'm optimistic in regards to we've gotten some shades of the old MCU. This is kind of the end of an era with the Guardians of the back half. We got introduced to them in phase 2 and wrapping up their story in phase 5. So it is a sad thing to see. And I hope, and another thing that makes me a little nervous is, you know, thinking of the Russos, James Gunn, or even Ryan Coogler, where they handpicked characters that spoke to their sensibilities. And the way Marvel's kind of been handpicking their directors is just kind of like plug and play. Like, oh, you did an independent film and you were able to bring out some nuance of a character. Maybe you can do, you know, this, that, and the other. So I hope that they are able to focus on actors, not actors, but directors that have characters that speak to them, that they can bring out the things that we love from the characters of, again, Captain America teaming perfectly up with the Russos, or, you know, so on and so forth, the characters that just match James Gunn to the Guardians. So as far as the hope, I'm hoping that, again, this is just our phase 1, phase 2, hits, misses, and we're starting to get into that phase 3 of it all, where we can get a consistent batch of films. Because I'm like Eman, I'm wishing well for Captain Marvel or the Marvels, but here behind the scenes, the Chapek effect, and just the whole just inconsistency within the MCU and of late makes me nervous. But I'm hopeful that Nia DaCosta can put her touch on it. But I am thinking that, yeah, the Captain Americas, the Thunderbolts, the Deadpool's 3, the Fantastic Four, hopefully that's that run of films I'm talking about where it's just like banger after banger after banger. One can be hopeful.
Right on. Nagier, coming to you, sir, man. After seeing Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, how are you feeling about the future of the MCU? Good, bad, in the middle? How you feeling, sir?
Definitely in the middle. A lot of the same sentiments as E-Man. Like, this did not push the needle. But collectively as a trilogy, I think Guardians definitely in that bit of self-containedness is fine. But as far as the overall picture of the MCU, I think the only thing we can actually take from this is just saying that, whew, thank God that wasn't bad. Cool. Now what's next?
Yeah. At least y'all didn't suck.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But you know, yeah, I think I'm just again optimistic about what's to come. I'm actually excited for the Marvels because I love Miss Marvel. But then to Elliot's point about the connections between these directors and these characters, you know, when are we going to get back to that? Or if we are going to stay with that? And I just feel like, one, there's going to be an identity crisis with this, because I did not like, first of all, I love Brie Larson, but let's just be honest, the script for her first film was just bad. So I'm wondering, do they repair that? Do they still bring in the magic from Miss Marvel? It's a lot of questions I have with that. So again, I'm going back into it. Like, hopefully it just doesn't suck. But yeah, when you talk about the new IPs or the Inquire IPs from Fox coming in now, you know, will this be the game changer? Will this be the continuity boost that we've been waiting for this entire time? Does that then get people to faithfully return to each of these MCU movies each and every few months? You say if they slow down, but nonetheless, hopefully that just changes the tone, changes the faith from the fans and the audience, and then they can get on the run. I do agree with that chunk of movies you said, Elliot. I think that's potentially the next eyesight in terms of are they going to get back in the groove? And where's Blade in this, by the way, which I'm also worried about. But where's Blade in the release again?
Mostly shooting in June, coming out in 2025, right?
Yeah, they're saying September of 2024. So a little over a year. Was that 14, 15 months?
They didn't push this back with all
They
the
did.
No,
They
they
pushed it.
did.
Yeah, it was supposed to come out in October or something.
Okay.
Yeah. I am really looking forward to Captain America New World Order. As you guys know, you know what I'm saying, Anthony Mackie gonna come through representing Black America. Yeah,
Mr. Twisted Metal himself. Yeah.
Yes. I still gotta react to that. I'm gonna do that tomorrow.
Ain't missing nothing.
Nagier, real quick, man. Well, before I come to you, if I had to rate this film out of a 1 out of 10, whether you do numbers, letters, whatever, let us know. But I'm gonna give it an 8.5 out of 10. After seeing it twice, I feel confident about that. What do you rank, whether it's letter, grade, or letter numbers? What do you rank Guardians 3?
As just wearing a critic hat here, this is definitely an 8.5 out of 10. There's very few things wrong, and I actually think that the things that Guardians of the Galaxy 2 kind of had its troubles with, especially with CGI. I think they took their time, got it correct with 3. I did love the music. I love the acting. And in the story itself, I think even if you've never seen a Guardians movie, I think if this is just a movie that you came into for the first time, I think you can enjoy it from that aspect. And that's to take away any bit of like comic book nerdom or any bit of knowledge that anybody has about the MCU. I think just as a solo project itself, it's an 8.5. There's very few things wrong with it. And then reasons why I do knock it down a little bit is that I again, and this may be just a personal nitpick, but I just felt like the animal cruelty part of it was just way too harsh for a movie that was very comedic at times, because that's surreal. And I was saying in my review, like, these are earth animals, so like it's very hard for you to not look at these things and be like, man, that's just rough, that's just bad, this guy is like, he's trash. And I just think that the toning of the emotions was complicated. It's hard.
James Gunn or the Evolutionary?
Evolutionary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that would just be my only thing. It's just the continuity and sort of the toning at times was a little bit difficult. And as y'all said, like, you know, there was times where jokes did not need to run as long as it did. Then there was times where it was perfectly fine, but everything just was just good. So but other than that, again, solid film. And what was the runtime? 2 hours and 30 minutes, I think.
2:30.
Man, that for to be honest, that thing breezed.
Right.
I don't know if I've ever felt like, I don't know if I felt at any point that this movie was just way too long. But just again, the toning with some of the emotions for me was problematic on that note.
Appreciate it, man. Elliot, what's your rating?
Yeah, so I had it initially I do it the 5 scale. So first viewing was like a 3.5, 3.8. Second view, I just put it up to a 4. So I guess out of 10, it's like 8. Yeah, 8 out of 10. Yeah, I think satisfied conclusion for a fan of the franchise. Really enjoy that they didn't kill off my man Rocket, so that puts add a little bonus points for me. But it's, yeah, narrative, we spoke about it, you know, the Adam Warlock of it all, fleshing out some of this, you know, the characters and their motivations moving forward in the franchise. But overall, man, I'm very satisfied. Definitely feel better as a Marvel fan than I did, you know, from a Thor: Love and Thunder or Quantumania. So kudos to James Gunn, man, to being able to finish his story. And hopefully take some of that experiences from the Marvel experience to the DCU, because we're DC all day, baby. So that's what I'm looking forward to next.
Right on. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Hey, one other thing I want to just piggyback off of something you said. James Gunn did absolutely get to tell his story, and I felt like he tried to tell a lot of story in this. Do you think that he got all of those points across and was fleshed out well?
I say, yeah.
Elliot.
Yeah. I think I think there was some revisions, obviously, from when he was supposed to do 3, and that was supposed to come out almost 2 years ago. But obviously, the Infinity War and Endgame changed. So yeah, I think he was able to tell his story, and I think from the beginning he wanted Rocket to end up on top, and that's what happened. Because I think he relates most to Rocket. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's like his favorite Guardian.
Oh. Eman, appreciate it. Eman, your rating? Yeah.
Your
rating,
scale from 1 to 10, I'm probably going to be a little lower, but I'm gonna give it a 7.5 out of 10. Still enjoyed it, still liked it. You know, I've already expressed a lot of the things I had issues with. I think part of the reason why I couldn't go a little bit higher to like an 8 or 8.5 was a lot of the things that I enjoyed. There were a couple instances where they just stopped working, you know. So we talked about the jokes. Some of the jokes were great, but dang it, some of the jokes couldn't pull back. Sorry, I got to ding you for that. Some of the themes and the relationships, the stories with the characters were great, but dang it, it got real repetitive and redundant with Star-Lord and Gamora. You know, so like it was one of those things where it's like I wanted to love this a little bit more, but I just couldn't get myself there when I like put everything pen to paper. But again, like I said, I thought this was a perfect ending for this character, for the characters, and for the trilogy overall. It's not something that I think, you know, and we talked about this too, because of its niche and very limited perspective and scope. It's not like the biggest splash in the MCU. And you know, take it or leave it. And you know, again, this is very, very dependent, I think, on how you engage with James Gunn and his material. If you like his stuff, I mean, it's like if you watch a Tarantino film, If you don't like Tarantino, it don't matter what he does. It don't matter how great his stuff can be. It's just not going to work for you. Same thing with De Niro, with Scorsese, or with Spike Lee. So, you know, I champion the fact that James Gunn, like I said, this is the James Gunniest movie that he has made. I like that, but it's also, you know, something that might not work for everyone. So I give him his points and credit where it's due. I have my own individual stuff, but yeah, about a 7.5. Liked it. And even though it's not my favorite Guardians movie, it's not also my worst. So I thought it was a good job overall, though.
Hey, Eman, you know
Yes,
what?
sir.
You know what's odd? It's the same logic I said about Thor: Love and Thunder. I said, you know exactly what you was getting with Taika. I don't know how people could be upset about that.
To be fair, no, I didn't. Because what we got in Thor: Love and Thunder, I think we got 65% Taika, right? Because there was clearly a tone shift with that, but at the same time, it still felt like Marvel's hand, the great hand of Marvel, was still kind of guiding it, right? But Thor: Love and Thunder, that was 100% Taika. Like, Kevin Feige wasn't even in the room. He was like, do whatever you want to do. You made a good movie before, do your thing.
Yeah.
I was not ready for 100% Taika. And Taika Unleashed is not a good fit for the MCU.
Fair. That's fair.
You see what I'm saying? So, like,
yeah.
So I had some expectations. I was like, yeah, I know we're going to get the jokes. I know we're going to get the levity. I knew that. I didn't know we was getting screaming goats. I didn't know Zeus was going to be all wild like that. Like, I wasn't ready for. But
yeah.
Real quick. Let me hit the save button real quick. For me, if I had to rank these, Guardians Volume 2 is in last place. As far as first, man, I'm dancing back and forth. I want to say 3. I want to go 3, 1, and 2. But because I love the High Evolutionary and I hated Ronin, but I loved all the jokes in the first one, but they lingered a little bit too long. So, oh man, right now I want to say I like 3 more, but I got to go back and visit. I'm gonna say 1, 3, and 2 as far as ranking is concerned. Elliot, how would you rank these films?
Yeah, same thing. 1, 3, 2.
Real quick, 1 through 2. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Eman, rank them real quick.
Yeah, 1, 3, 2.
1 through 2. Nagier.
Yeah, same. And also too, because like 1 had the biggest job here. Again, this is a bunch of nothings and nobodies and anything, and they came out, swung for the fence, and a banger home run. And then if you ask people who's their top 5 Marvel movies, you're going to hear Guardians of the Galaxy within that.
Already. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we want to thank you so much for tuning in to our Marvel Studios of James Gunn's film, Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 3, Spoilers Edition. I had so much fun going over all these details, all the nitty gritty with my guests. This was fun. I love doing it. It is a highlight of my day when we're doing all these collabs. This is just super dope, and I love it. Again, Elliot, Nagier, Eman, thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. It means the world to me. And before we head out of here, again, all of these people are on my channel tab right here. But Elliot, congratulations again, my brother. You just reached another milestone of 50,000 subscribers. You're on your way to 100. You'll be working hard. I'm very proud of you, sir. Why don't you let the good people know what you got going on your channel right now?
Yeah, man. Well, hey, B, like you said, man, it's always great to chopping it up and collabing with some great content creator, great people. So thank you for having me on the panel. But yeah, guys, you can find me here on YouTube at Movie Files, talking about most of the latest shows on HBO, like right now, Succession and Barry, and getting ready for some great stuff in the summer. Talking about the latest movies as well. So yeah, Movie Files on YouTube, man. Check me out.
Already. Thank you. Here he is. He's also in the description. Eman, thank you for being here, sir. You're on your way to 100K. That's what's up. And why don't you let the good people out there know what you got going on your channel, sir?
Yeah. So every Friday, if you want to come join the E-Fam, the E-Vengers, come on through. We go do a whole recap of all the entertainment news throughout the week. And you know, I give you my commentary and my thoughts, and everybody comes together, joins in, and we have us a good old time with that. So you definitely want to catch that every Friday, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. In addition to that, of course, you're gonna get reviews and other things, but right now I am diving deep into the series From. If you have not watched From, I'm welcoming you to take the From challenge. It is super easy. All you got to do is watch the first episode of season 1 for 8 minutes. If you get past them 8 minutes, and if you are interested, even remotely, you got to finish the rest of the season. I guarantee if you can get to that point, you're going to be hooked. Outside of that, if it don't work for you after them first 8 minutes, leave it alone, walk away, because it ain't for you. Okay, so for the horror / mystery fans, From is something you definitely got to check out. And I'm breaking down not only season 1, but I'm also breaking down season 2 as well. So you're going to get all the clues, the mysteries, the theories, everything that you could possibly think of, all in one-stop shop. So you definitely want to come check that out. But yeah, outside of that, that's pretty much it. I got a couple interviews coming up as well. Yeah, it's going to be a good time. So come on through.
I really appreciate that, my brother. Nagier, last but not least, with Big Gold Belt Media, what you got going on? Thank you for being here, sir. I do appreciate it, and welcome to the fold, man. I'm glad that we was finally able to get you in here, man. It's been a long time due, so thank you. But what do you have going on your channel, sir, for all the good people out there?
First off, thank you and salute to the other Black Kings on this, man. Everybody grinding, putting out that content, and yeah, Eman, From is like that, and I love that challenge because yeah, that is a must watch. But for me, right now the focus is Power Book 2 Ghost. We're getting ready for episode 8 this week. All things in terms of power right now. But as we are ramping up for Tribeca, expect a lot of independent film coverage and then other movies that are probably already purchased but yet going to be premiering at Tribeca. So prepare to see some movie reviews from that, some red carpet interviews coming from that, and trying to think what else is about to come out. And yeah, my team, we got some other things that's covering. And then yeah, you got our weekly wrestling podcast each and every Thursday 8 p.m. as we talk all things pro wrestling. So yeah, check me out.
Hey man, y'all killed it on the Snowfall and Power reviews, man. Y'all did a good job, and so I was checking those out. And so good stuff, man.
Same to you, brother.
Trying to get like you, my sir. Trying to get like you. But as far as I'm concerned, man, come on over. Check me out live. Check out my videos. I changed up some things every Sunday. I got a comic book superhero show that I'll be hosting 6 p.m. CST. I'm covering everything else as well. I mean, over here you're gonna get movie reviews, spoiler movie reviews, series reviews, weekly movie news roundup show, and of course I'm just covering all of my favorite shows on TV right now. I'm behind on Bel Air, but I'm still come through with some recaps, and of course we're talking Power Book 2 Go season 3 as well. And if you're into martial arts, make sure you check out Donnie Yen's latest film Sakura. It's pretty good. I mean, I liked it. This man is blasting the hell out of people with his palms. I think it was like the 18 palm dragon. I forgot. It was bad. He's pretty powerful. And of course, we're trying to figure out what's going on with Mr. Majors. And I got a couple of trailer reactions as well. And so also, if you want an audio only version, check me out. Link is in the description with buzzsprout.com. Also on SoundCloud as well. So if you want to get your audio only version on, check all that out. But guys, again, we just want to thank you all so much for tuning in. And before you go, don't forget that I'm B. Avery. That's Elliot, Eman, and Nagier. And that's just our opinion. Peace out. And we'll see you all next time.